The story of planet growth. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, Destiny. In the abyss of darkness, a large number of deep sea beasts gathered frantically towards the location of the sea dragon like sharks smelling blood. Countless powerful sea monsters with fangs and sharp teeth roared frantically. They rushed towards the sea dragon from different locations in the deep sea. They possessed huge power and unmatched crazy will. They could mobilize the spiritual energy of heaven and earth hidden in the deep sea. They could create ocean undercurrents that tore apart all life. They rushed into the killing domain that had been dyed blood red without hesitation. Then, countless shrill screams spread from the killing domain to the surrounding oceans. Countless terrifying bone-breaking sounds, like a symphony of fate, fiercely struck the hearts of the sea beasts. These heart-shaking sounds, along with the power of the sea dragon's soul, crushed any creature that dared to go deep into the killing domain, and deeply projected their invincible posture into the entire deep sea beast group. The gap between the sea dragon and the ordinary deep sea beast is like the difference between heaven and earth. The sea dragon can easily crush the skull of any creature and crush the body of any creature. In the ocean at this stage, the sea dragon is invincible, unmatched, and a true son of the ocean. If it is a normal environment, just relying on the killing of the sea dragon, it can firmly engrave its powerful posture in the hearts of marine creatures, so that marine creatures unconditionally submit to the will of the sea dragon. But the dark abyss is not an ordinary area. All creatures in the dark abyss are powerful creatures driven crazy by endless darkness. Their crazy will fills the entire dark abyss, reflecting the hysterical madness in the minds of all creatures, thus creating a continuous stream of crazy thoughts, which is almost indestructible. Just like the evil ghosts in hell, it can never be destroyed or killed. As long as any creature exists in the dark abyss for one day, it will be eroded by the crazy will in the dark abyss, and then degenerate into the provider of the crazy will of the dark abyss. Life provides crazy will for the dark abyss to grow, and the growing dark abyss will instill even crazier will into the mind of life. In this cycle, one day the dark abyss will go from being the nightmare of deep sea creatures to the nightmare of the entire primordial star. This cycle is not dominated by anyone's will. It is just like the natural rules that permeate the primordial star, so natural. And there are 3 reasons why the sea dragon placed its hope of breaking through the realm in the dark abyss. One is that the dark abyss contains the most powerful creatures in the entire ocean, which can help the sea dragon accumulate enough gene samples to construct a sufficiently powerful mahe and a body. The second is that only a crazy enough battle can make the soul particles of the sea dragon grow rapidly, thereby strengthening the sea dragon's soul. Compared to craziness, how many deep sea beasts can be compared to those who are tortured crazy by endless darkness? As for the third reason, it is the promise that the sea dragon has been upholding from beginning to end. Once the sea dragon itself cannot break through in this crazy battle, it will die in the dark abyss. Then the dead sea dragon will provide the dark abyss with a more crazy will, so that the dark abyss will grow rapidly and finally fulfill its promise in an alternative way. As the battle of the sea dragon continues, more and more deep sea monsters join in this crazy fight, and this killing brings enough crazy will to the dark abyss. Whether it is the bloodthirsty brutality of the deep sea monsters or the crazy posture of the sea dragons in battle, they are providing a strong crazy will for the dark abyss, making the dark abyss grow rapidly. On the Yuan-Shi star, the crazy behavior of the sea dragon attracted Li Hao's attention and pulled Li Hao out of the working state of building the natural ecology of the Yuan-Shi star. In the ocean, that occupies 3/5 of the entire Han-Huang star, almost all the spiritual energy of the world is converging towards the deep sea area. This trend of convergence even affects the material level of the Han-Huang star. Like dominoes, the gathering of the spiritual energy of the world affects the material particles on the Han-Huang star. As the basic conditions for the composition of all things in nature, once the material particles are turbulent, they will cause all kinds of strange phenomena in the world. The rapid movement of a large amount of spiritual energy from heaven and earth pushed the material particles that were originally in a dead state frantically. The turbulence of these material particles caused countless huge typhoons to form on the surface of the ocean. The formation of typhoons affects more material particles. The activities of material particles change the natural celestial phenomena of Hong Huang Star, presenting a scene of doomsday disaster to the people of Hong Huang Star. Such a huge movement of spiritual energy from heaven and earth, as long as Lee Heo is not blind. Even if he passes through the distance barrier in the universe, Lee Heo can see the cloud vortex on the surface of Hong Huang Star. Damn, what happened? There is such a huge movement. No mistake. One song, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar, one look. Lee Heo's control over Hong Huang Star is like the control of the central government over the local government. As long as there is no huge fluctuation on Hong Huang Star, Lee Heo will generally not take it to heart. After all, within the weak interference area, Lee Heo's interference power cannot completely control everything on Hong Huang Star. As Lee Heo's eyes converged on Hong Huang Star, the god particles hidden in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, like Lee Heo's eyes and ears, began to gather into a huge golden eye above the sky of Hong Huang Star. The eye formed by a large number of god particles was like the ruthless universe, watching all the changes happening on Hong Huang Star with ruthlessness and indifference, watching the center of this abnormal change. Of course, Lee Heo did not deliberately make a ruthless and indifferent attitude. The reason why the golden giant eye had such an expression was entirely because Lee Heo could not transmit his feelings in the weak interference area. Looking at the center of this abnormal movement, Lee Heo stroked his chin with one hand and muttered to himself, "So that's how it is. I use my own soul to bear the crazy history of the abyss of darkness, thereby promoting the increase of my soul particles. With the flesh and blood genes of many deep sea beasts, I build a powerful material body by taking a chance. I start from both the soul and the material level at the same time to forcibly break through the existing realm. However, this is a road of no return. It is also a dead end. But as the first strong man in Hong Huang Star, to create a new path, I can't just ignore the tragedy. Then it's time to show what destiny is." As Lee Heo's will moved, the future destiny of the sea dragon, which was almost doomed to die, changed immediately. This is not the power of fate, but the will of Lee Heo. Chapter 27 The Power of Civilization. Lee Heo observed the macroscopic material world through the eyes, composed of the gathered god particles above the Hong Huang Star, so as to see what happened on the Hong Huang Star. After determining the cause of the Hong Huang Star's abnormal movement, Lee Heo disbanded the god particles that gathered into eyes, and then prepared to implement his plan to help Heo upgrade from a microscopic perspective. The god's perspective is not just an ordinary skill that extends Lee Heo's vision. The god's perspective brings Lee Heo more different perspective experiences and different perspectives of the world. The extremely macroscopic cosmic perspective, the normal life perspective, and the extremely microscopic particle perspective. These three perspectives are the different states of Lee Heo's observation of the universe. With the help of these three perspectives, Lee Heo can calculate the gravity of the galaxy, and even simulate the operation of the star trajectory, etc. Various calculations on the level of the universe and stars. It can also promote the evolution of civilization and dominate the historical process of all living beings. It can also change the existence form of life and indirectly affect the life form of a civilization. These three perspectives are exactly the three forms of Lee Heo: the orderly celestial stars, the neutral Lee Heo, and the chaotic god particles. The stars are Lee Heo's body in the void of the universe. Normally, Lee Heo is the continuation of the history of the earth. The god particle is Lee Heo's means of interfering with material particles. Order is the principle that Lee Heo must abide by when walking in the void of the universe, and chaos is Lee Heo's means of interfering with established facts. Lee Heo's will determines the tendency of order and chaos. In the universe, Lee Heo strictly abides by the various rules between the stars and dares not cross the line. In the microscopic world, Lee Heo wantonly stirs the material particles existing in the universe, thereby affecting the development of the situation between the stars with the changes of material particles. To use a sentence often said by great supernatural powers, the general trend of heaven does not change, but the small trend can change. The general trend refers to the basic rules of the universe, while the small trend refers to the world of microscopic particles. Normally, the material particles in the entire universe are in a dead state, and everything is running in absolute order without any changes, just like a rigid program. However, the existence of soul particles has caused some changes in the material particles in the microscopic particle world, thus causing a trace of unknown changes in the dead universe void. The source of power born from the combination of soul particles and material particles gives this unknown change hope of continuation. Time pushes the unknown to change and produces history, and soul particles absorb the history produced by unknown changes, thus increasing continuously. The increasing number of soul particles has become the source of a large number of unknown changes in history. In this cycle, the origin of life has been produced in the universe, and the eternal and immortal universe has also ushered in restarts again and again. As for what this unknown is, no one knows, and at most it can only be forcibly named Tao. Lihaos will penetrate it into the microscopic particle world. This is a world where soul particles and material particles complement each other. Soul particles push material particles to move constantly, thus producing a large number of historical processes, and soul particles grow stronger by absorbing history. As soon as he entered the microscopic particle world, Lihao sensed the crazy turbulence between soul particles and material particles. By comparing the normal life perspective with the microscopic particle perspective, Lihao found the sea dragon in the center of the battlefield and the corresponding position in the microscopic particle world. From a normal perspective, the body of the sea dragon is constantly killing and devouring the physical bodies of deep sea beasts, while the soul is constantly absorbing the crazy history in the abyss of darkness. From a microscopic particle perspective, the genetic structure of the sea dragon is constantly being impacted by the genetic structure of other creatures. The soul of the sea dragon is constantly receiving the crazy history of the abyss of darkness, so that the soul particles in the soul's weapons are constantly increasing, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that permeates the ocean is combined with the soul particles to strengthen the soul of the sea dragon. At this moment, the sea dragon is facing two crises. One is the impact of the crazy history from the abyss of darkness on the sea dragon's rationality, and the other is the speed of repairing the sea dragon's constantly broken and reorganized genetic structure. The crisis of the soul comes from the sea dragon's acceptance of history. If you want to obtain the great inheritance in history, there are only two ways, either to take on this history with your own will, and regard yourself as the inheritor of this history, or to forcibly integrate this history with your own civilization history. The sea dragon has no civilizational heritage that can compare to the dark abyss, so it can only accept the indoctrination of this history and rely on its own will to prevent itself from being affected by this history. This is like the comparison between the civilizational history of China and the civilizational history of the barbarians. China can rely on its own civilizational heritage to forcibly integrate the history of the barbarians and turn the history of the barbarians into part of its own history, becoming a kind of icing on the cake. If the barbarians want not to be annexed by the history of China and want to gain the power of the inheritance of Chinese civilization, they can only accept the baptism of Chinese civilization. And in this baptism, they will not be affected by the inheritance of Chinese civilization and still maintain the confidence to develop and expand their own civilization history. But this is so difficult. Throughout the ages, there have been many barbarians who have defeated Chinese civilization by force, but so far, how many have not regarded their own history as a part of the glory of the inheritance of Chinese civilization? No mistakes. One post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar. Take a look. As for the influence of the Yuanshan level, Li Hao has no way to help He Jiao get rid of this life crisis. Anything related to the soul can only be solved by one's own will. Others can only help indirectly, but cannot intervene directly. This is not to say that Li Hao really has no way, but that Li Hao's method has too many side effects. Just like fighting poison with poison, only a stronger history can overcome the influence of history. However, in this way, He Jiao will fall into the influence of the Earth's history again. Isn't this a loss? What Li Hao wants is a great man who can get rid of the influence of the old history and create a new history, rather than a puppet at the mercy of history. However, for the changes at the genetic level, Li Hao can help, just as scientific thinking and science and technology are two aspects of the matter. Scientific thinking represents the historical heritage of a civilization and is one of the fundamental forces of a civilization. And science and technology are just a tool. Complete scientific thinking represents the all-round influence of civilization history on life, while pure science and technology is just a single influence on life. Just like the difference between a lighter in the eyes of a civilization inheritor and a civilization infected person. In the eyes of the inheritors of civilization, a lighter is just a lighter, and it is nothing else. In the eyes of the infected, a lighter may be a weapon of the gods, or it may be a delicate work of art. See, this is the difference between inheritance and technology. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, The Dark Yellow Blood. In the microscopic particle world, with the sea dragon as the center, a large number of material gene structures were swallowed by the sea dragon, and then forcibly fused by the material genes in the sea dragon's body, thus achieving the sea dragon's powerful Mahayana body. Gene fusion is an extremely cruel thing on the material level. This fusion process is like beating two living people into blood, then mixing the two pools of blood together, and finally reshaping them into a brand new body. In this gene fusion process, the sea dragon must endure the pain of the soul and use its own will to dominate its own genes, to fuse the genes of other creatures. And this process is not once, but continues. As long as the sea dragon's battle in the abyss of darkness has not stopped, then this hellish torture will never stop, and this fatal pain will continue to increase with the passage of time. Imagine that you have a cut on your arm, and then in the next moment, when your wound has not healed, another knife cuts a bigger cut on your old wound again, and this process continues. The constant pain tortured the sea dragon's will, wanting to drag the sea dragon completely into the abyss of madness, and eventually become part of the abyss of darkness. In this battle, the sea dragon cannot have the slightest madness. It can only have a chance of survival if it maintains its absolute rationality and blocks out all emotions that can interfere with it. Lee Heo watched the sea dragon struggling on the edge of madness and rationality and couldn't help but praise it and said, "What a terrible willpower. In the endless pain and torture, you can still maintain your rationality. You are worthy of being the strongest in the ocean. You have successfully won my favor, so it's up to you to open the prelude to the civilization era." As Lee Heo's will moved, a large number of god particles on the Yuanshi star all began to operate, based on the material gene structure of the sea dragon at the current stage, and with the material genes swallowed by the sea dragon as additional conditions, thus forming a gene editing device. On the Yuanshi star, Lee Heo raised his right hand, and a large number of god particles simulated the genetic structure of the sea dragon on Lee Heo's right hand. Then, a huge project comparable to calculating the orbit of the star system was launched in the center of Lee Heo's palm. With the simulation of the genetic structure of the sea dragon as the center, a large number of genetic structures belonging to the dark abyss creatures appeared one by one in Lee Heo's left hand. The order of appearance of the genetic structures of these dark abyss creatures was the order of the material genes that the sea dragons fought and devoured. In the deep sea of the Honghuang star, the bloody sea dragon ruthlessly tore the body of an octopus and swallowed the flesh and blood of the giant octopus into its stomach. At the moment when the giant octopus entered its stomach, all kinds of unspeakable tastes hit the sea dragon's brain. The genes inside the sea dragon's body were once again shattered by the impact under the perception of the sea dragon's soul. This painful feeling is like a wound that has finally healed, being torn alive again. The double torture of the soul and body made the sea dragon almost crazy. But the sea dragon shook his head in the boiling ocean full of blood, keeping his consciousness clear. "I can't fall into a coma. My promise has not been fulfilled. How can I admit defeat?" Roar. The deafening roar rushed out of the sea dragon's mouth, shaking the bloody sea water and crushing all the lives that dared to challenge him. With the roar of the sea dragon only felt that his body had grown a little stronger. The thickness of the scales became stronger again, and the ferocious muscles became more solid and tight. At this time, the sea dragon understood that the blood of the octopus just now had been completely fused by himself and completely became his own blood power. As this thought arose, the sea dragon seemed to feel an inexplicable joy rising from every cell in his body. The sea dragon knew that this was the joy of evolution. Come again. The sea dragon launched a desperate attack on the creatures of the abyss of darkness again with boiling blood. On the Yuanshi star, Li Hao looked at the thousands of scrapped sea dragon gene structure simulated by God particles in his hands, as well as the only successful gene structure, and roared with blood boiling. Come again. Immediately, a large number of God particles were formed in Li Hao's hands, and a more complex gene elimination began again. Li Hao completed a large number of gene structure combinations in a short period of time through his own simulation experiments. Finally, the successful gene structure combination was sent to the God particles of Hang Huang star, and finally the God particles of Hang Huang star assisted the sea dragon to complete gene evolution again and again, and the transition of life essence. In this process, what needs to be tested is not only Li Hao's speed in constructing gene structures, but also the tolerance of sea dragons to gene tearing. Li Hao's experimental data can only be collected at the moment when the foreign gene and the sea dragon gene collide, and the number of gene structure simulations up to thousands or tens of thousands of times begins to obtain the best gene structure diagram. During this process, as long as the sea dragon's consciousness is slightly relaxed, it will lead to the death of the sea dragon, and the failure of Li Hao's experimental data collection, which will eventually lead to the failure of the beginning of the prelude to the civilization era of the prehistoric star. Time is very long, but also very short. In the blink of an eye, 3 years have passed on the prehistoric star. During these 3 years, the entire ocean of the prehistoric star has been turbulent under the ravages of the typhoon. Countless marine lives were swept into the sky by the power of the typhoon, and finally torn apart, and turned into a bloody rain. In this ocean disaster, only 1 in 10 lives in the entire ocean survived. However, at the cost of this, as the strongest in the ocean, the sea dragon has obtained an extremely powerful blood power. On the Yuanshi star, Li Hao looked at the drop of blood in his hand that was emitting a golden glow, and his eyes were extremely fascinated. No mistakes. 1 post, 1 content, 1 book, 1 bar, 1619, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 look. This is a miracle in the history of life evolution, a powerful bloodline that combines all the genes of the ocean. A supreme bloodline that is superior to all bloodlines. A supreme bloodline that can merge with any bloodline and survive the fittest. It was finally born in my hands. Your name, Xuanhuang blood. In the deep sea of Hang Huang star, with the birth of the first drop of Xuanhuang blood in the body of the sea dragon, almost in an instant, all the other blood in the body of the sea dragon was assimilated and absorbed, and the bright red blood turned into golden Xuanhuang blood in the blink of an eye. And after the blood in the body of the sea dragon was completely transformed into Xuanhuang blood, a loud dragon roar resounded throughout the entire Hang Huang star, and countless spiritual energy of the world boiled for it. A supreme pressure that surpassed all life made all life on the entire Hang Huang star unconsciously bow its head. Dragons can be big or small, can rise or hide. When they are big, they can create clouds and mist, and when they are small, they can hide their shapes. When they rise, they soar in the universe, and when they hide, they lurk in the waves. Almost in the blink of an eye, a blue dragon circling in the sky appeared in the eyes of all living beings. Chapter 29, All beasts pay homage to the blue. The incomparably huge blue dragon was winding and circling in the sky. As the blue dragon moved slightly, a violent storm formed on the prehistoric star. The storm rolled up the clouds in the sky, forming a thick rain cumulus cloud. These rain cumulus clouds were like a part of the blue dragon, following the movement of the blue dragon. This scene undoubtedly well explained what it means to call the wind and rain. The blue dragon is a super life form born in the ocean. The blue dragon's Mahayana body is constructed by all the blood power of the entire ocean. Whether in terms of quantity or quality, it is far superior to the creatures of the entire ocean. In addition, the blue dragon's promotion was to rise by stepping on the corpses of countless losers. So for all the creatures in the ocean, the blue dragon is the supreme master of the ocean. When the blue dragon was winding and circling in the sky, in the blue dragon's consciousness, Li Hao's human figure appeared in the blue dragon's consciousness like an illusory light and shadow. With the appearance of Li Hao, Kang Lang only felt a sense of submission from the soul. This feeling of submission could not be abandoned, and would not be abandoned, as if his submission was natural. This distorted concept of submission took root in Kanglang's mind the moment Lee Heo appeared, and it would never be shaken. In fact, Lee Heo did nothing at all. The reason why Kanglang had the idea of submission the moment Lee Heo appeared was entirely because of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that constituted Kanglang's yuanshan. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is a high energy particle that has been diluted many times and belongs to the God particle. A trace of Lee Heo's soul particle is contained in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. A large amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth belonging to Lee Heo and Kanglang's soul particles combine to form Kanglang's yuanshan. So when Kanglang faced Lee Heo, who was composed of God particles, the high energy looked down on the low energy, and the low energy looked up to the high energy would appear involuntarily. This state is not dominated by the will of life. For those with strong will, this kind of admiration is just the respect of the younger generation for the older generation. For those with weak will, this is the emperor, the supreme being, that cannot be offended. As the pioneer of an era in Lee Heo's eyes, Kanglang is naturally not the kind of person with weak will. He has survived countless hardships of genetic collapse. Kanglang is definitely not the kind of life that is willing to be inferior to others. Kanglang's voice said calmly in his consciousness, "Who are you?" Facing Kanglang's question, Lee Heo also said calmly, "The original God, Yuanshi." "What is that?" "Your future." "How do you say it?" Gods are born in history, with history as the source of their divinity, divine energy as the body of true gods, and material energy as the foundation of the kingdom of God. Forge the road to eternal immortality. 500 years later, the Yuanshi star will be close to the Hangliang star. At that time, you can choose to coexist with the Dragon Clan, or choose to ascend to the upper realm and enjoy immortality forever. Dragon Clan. Yes, the Dragon Clan, and your name is Aoshan. After saying this, Lee Heo's figure gradually faded like a dream bubble, and disappeared in Aoshan's consciousness. With the appearance and disappearance of Lee Heo, Kanglang's soul in the outside world was in a trance for a while, and then everything returned to normal. At this time, it was not even a second before Aoshan ascended to the sky and surpassed all living beings. Aoshan looked at the void of the universe outside the Hangliang star and muttered to himself, "Are gods immortal? I don't know what choice I will make at that time. But before that, my promise still needs to be fulfilled." Aoshan's consciousness returned from the void, and a dragon roar that resounded through the world lingered between heaven and earth, like the roar of thunder, shaking the hearts of living beings, and reflecting the power into the hearts of all living beings on the Hangliang star. At the moment when the dragon roar sounded, Aoshan's powerful yuanshan extended to every corner of the Hangliang star with the help of the spiritual energy between heaven and earth. As the first super life form on the Hangliang star to achieve Mahayana, it naturally has special treatment. Lee Heo gave Kanglang the authority to dominate the spiritual energy of the entire Hangliang star in a short period of time, so that Kanglang could subdue all living beings on the Hangliang star at the fastest speed, thereby forging the civilization history of the Hangliang star. But is everything really that simple? On the Hangliang star, as the roar of Kanglang resounded throughout the world, an inexplicable strong pressure surged in the hearts of the creatures on Hangliang star, as if the invincible sky was declaring its existence to all living beings. The strong pressure swept across the entire Hangliang star, forcing the creatures on Hangliang star to lower their heads, thus forming a situation where all beasts were facing Kanglang. In the sky, countless giant birds fell from the sky, crawled on the ground in a panic, and lowered their proud heads to Kanglang. On the ground, composed of countless gravels, King Jinpeng looked at Kanglang's position with ferocious eyes, and the red blood dripped from the corners of King Jinpeng's eyes, dyeing the gravel ground red. No mistakes in one song, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar, one look. The strong pressure forced King Jinpeng's head to keep approaching the ground, using actions to express his submission to Kanglang. But as the king of the entire sky race, King Jinpeng was not willing to surrender. However, in the face of powerful pressure, any resistance is futile. At this time, the existence of Kanglang represents the will of the entire Hangliang star. It is so insignificant to fight against the entire Han Huang star with one's own strength. In the end, King Jinpeng's head fell heavily on the gravel ground. The sharp gravel rubbed King Jinpeng's wings and body, and countless scarlet blood dripped from King Jinpeng's wounds. These wounds were caused by King Jinpeng's body rubbing against the sharp gravel in order to resist the pressure of Kanglang. King Jinpeng, who was full of strong reluctance in his heart, struggled hard to stand up from the gravel ground. However, the power of Han Huang star was so huge that everything King Jinpeng did was just in vain. I will retaliate. I will definitely retaliate. How can the proud sky race bow to the humble ocean race? The strong reluctance burst out from King Jinpeng's teeth. Compared to the strong reluctance of the king of the sky race, the land, as one of the 3 poles of the Han Huang star, did not react at all. They willingly submitted to the power of the blue dragon. So under this violent coercion, the blue dragon completed the suppression of the Han Huang star, and established a pattern of all beasts paying homage to the blue dragon. On the Han Huang star, as the creatures of the Han Huang star submitted to the blue dragon, all the spiritual energy of the sky and the land was plundered by the blue dragon, and countless spiritual energy of the sky and the land gathered towards the ocean, thus forging the destiny of the rise of the ocean. On the Yuanxi star, Li Hao watched all the creatures of the Han Huang star submit to the blue dragon, and said in a flat voice, the fall of the hegemon, the rise of the king, and the advancement of the fool are really a unique drama. Thanks to the emperors of the heavens, the Red Star Republic, and Brother Kanchan for their awards. Speaking of why the clicks keep increasing, but the collections don't increase, it's really sad. Chapter 30 Rules of the Game of Gods. The rolling spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered madly towards the ocean like a young swallow returning to its nest. When the creatures of Han Huang star surrendered to Kanglang, the history line of the creatures of Han Huang star was being madly squeezed by the history line of the dragon race represented by Kanglang. A large amount of history belonging to other races was gradually being eroded by the history line of the dragon race, even if there was only Kanglang in the dragon race at this time. The crushing of the history line was the path of promotion summarized by Li Hao, based on the conditions required for the birth of gods. If the 3 stages of energy core, Yuan Shnama, and even Mahayana god body still belong to the individual strength, then the 4th stage, which is the path after ascension designed by Li Hao for the creatures of Han Huang star, Godhead armor, is the powerful path of civilization. Yuan Shnama is an enhanced version of the soul, and Godhead armor is an enhanced version of Yuan Shen. The functions of the 3 of soul, Yuan Shen, and Godhead are to allow the self of life to receive information from the outside world at a faster speed, thus existing as a high-tech product. Well, metaphysical high-tech products. A person's life from birth to death is a historical process, and during the time of this person's existence, his every action will have an impact on other people. Usually, in addition to the necessary survival materials, all other resources that a person can obtain are plundered from others through various means. This plundering process continues only because it exists. There are piles of bones under the feet of the strong. The strong historical process is the failure history of the weak. The stronger the strong, the more powerful the history of others he can influence. For example, a businessman wants to make money and be a superior person, so he must let others work for him. And this process is the process in which the businessman's history line is crushing the worker's history line. By plundering the future of the worker, the businessman enriches his own history, strengthens his own existence history, weakens the existence history of the worker, and makes the worker's history the glory of the businessman, and finally completely disappears under the glory of the businessman, becoming the bones under the feet of the businessman. Don't say what is legal or illegal, because the definition of legality is made by the strong, and the businessman is the strong for the worker. Li Hao extracted this historical line crushing method and formulated the game rules for the gods who will ascend to the upper world in the future. In Li Hao's rules, the gods who ascend to the Yuanxi star will be born from the powerful historical line. The power of the gods is all linked to the history of their own civilization. The gods are powerful, noble, and wise. As the helmsman of civilization, the gods must be rational. They cannot kill like the civilians at the bottom. They have their own rules of the game. In the process of the operation of this rule, Li Hao will be the referee of this rule, punishing the offenders and rewarding the winners. Civilization is the sword of expansion in the hands of the gods. Civilization is the shield of protection in the hands of the gods. And civilization is the best tool for the gods to explore the world. Civilization will be the only chip for victory or defeat in the game of the gods. For example, like the Kanglang on the Hang Huang star now, what Kanglang is doing at this time is to crush the other races on the Hang Huang star through its own strength. When Kanglang spreads the number of dragons from one to all, it is the time when the history of the dragon race is exterminating the history of other races. This process is not dominated by anyone's will. As long as the dragon race still wants to exist, and as long as the dragon race still wants to be strong, this process is necessary. In the process of this historical line crushing, everything the dragon race has experienced will become the wealth of the dragon race, the source of Kanglang's divinity, and the skeleton of Kanglang and the dragon race in the process of becoming strong. When the Yuanxi star reaches the sky above the Hang Huang star and the strong interference area covers the entire Hang Huang star, the powerful dragon race will be Kanglang's bargaining chip on the game field of the gods. If Kanglang can exterminate all other races on the entire Hang Huang star, then Kanglang will be the only winner in the entire game field of the gods. At that time, with the historical supply of the entire Hang Huang star, Kanglang will directly become the main god position on the Yuanxi star, and his power will only be lower than Li Hao. If Kanglang can use the power of civilization to get rid of the control of the god particle, then even Li Hao will be buried under the power of Kanglang. Of course, Li Hao is not a fool. He will never allow such a thing to happen. In Li Hao's design, the dragon clan is inevitable to be strong, but the dragon clan must not be strong enough to exceed the constraints of the rules. The crushing of the historical line is the only victory condition in the game field of the gods. The powerful civilization crushes the weak civilization and constantly squeezes the historical line of the weak civilization. In the end, the weak civilization will either integrate into the powerful historical line and become a part of the powerful historical line, making its existence the glory of the strong, or it will be directly crushed by the powerful historical line and eventually become the conquered civilization recorded in the history line of the powerful civilization. Although the final results of the two are the same, the gods of weak civilizations who resist to the end will be completely shattered by the gods of the powerful historical line civilization and fall. If you surrender, you will hand over your life and death to the hands of the gods of powerful civilizations, in exchange for the right to live. In the game field of the gods, the crushing of the historical line will be extremely cruel, just like the process of religious preaching. Holding a sword in one hand and a Bible in the other, those who rebel against me will enter reincarnation. Those who obey me will return to my way. Eventually, weak civilizations will be eliminated, and powerful civilizations will become more and more prosperous. The original gods composed of many powerful civilizations will be Li Hao's best sword and shield. Just like civilization is the sword of expansion and the shield of God in the hands of the gods, the gods are the sword of expansion and the shield of God in the hands of Li Hao. On the Yuanxi star, in the temple of the gods created by Li Hao, located on the most central throne of the main god, Li Hao is like the heavenly way that controls everything. He sits in the center of the temple of the gods, looking into the distance with deep eyes, and sees all the changes on the prehistoric star through the distant universe. Starting from the advent of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, all the creatures on the entire prehistoric star have emerged from a series of historical processes. These historical processes are the existence time of these creatures. Some creatures have strengthened their own history by devouring the history of other creatures, and some creatures are passively squeezed by the powerful historical line, in this picture of the survival of the fittest. No mistakes in one song, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar, one look. There are two largest historical lines intertwined. One is the history line of the sky race headed by King Jinpeng, as the first group on the entire prehistoric star to come into contact with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The history line of the sky race was the first to take shape. The history line formed by the countless bird life histories is so huge and spectacular. However, this great splendor is constantly declining under the swallowing of the Kanglang history line. Kanglang suppressed the entire prehistoric star with his own strength. Although this power is not Kanglang's own power, But from the moment the prehistoric races bowed to Kanglang and surrendered, their history line, their future, was gradually moving towards Kanglang. If no one stopped it, the final result would be that Kanglang's history line swallowed up the entire prehistoric history line. However, this swallowing is very slow, just like the emperor is losing his family, and it is impossible to make the whole world miserable in a short period of time. It is those who are subordinate to the emperor, aristocratic families, who can make the emperor cause chaos in the whole world. Only a large enough group can make the people of the world miserable. Similarly, if Kanglang wants to devour the entire history of Han Huang in the shortest time, he must create his own race. And this process is what Li Hao said, the fall of the hegemon and the rise of the king. The hegemon is the representative of power, while the king is the representative of the coexistence of power and wisdom. The reckless man versus the saint monarch. This is a self-evident ending. In the center of the silent pantheon, the history of the rise and fall of Han Huang star is constantly being instilled into Li Hao's divinity, strengthening Li Hao's foundation. Under this continuous strength, a large number of material particles are transformed into god particles by Li Hao, becoming a tool for Li Hao's expansion. Thanks to the immortal King Junlin Jiushan for the 100 starting coins reward. Chapter 31 The Rules of Distribution of Spiritual Energy. While Li Hao was silently watching the rise and fall of the history of Han Huang star, Ao Shan, who was showing off his might on Han Huang star, finally collected all his magical powers and returned to the sea again. As Ao Shan entered the sea, a feeling of intimacy floated into Ao Shan's heart, which gradually calmed down Ao Shan's manic will of crazy fighting these days. The cold sea water in the ocean silently washed Ao Shan's mind, cleared away all the unnecessary troubles, and gave Ao Shan a clear brain. Ao Shan looked around, and his pair of blue dragon eyes were like two gems, emitting a shining brilliance. Through the thick sea water, Ao Shan saw the skeletons at the bottom of the ocean. These skeletons were the deep sea monsters that fought with Ao Shan and felt the broken bodies and flesh in the ocean. A trace of sadness involuntarily emerged in Ao Shan's heart. When Ao Shan was fighting with the deep sea monster, the history of the dark abyss was constantly instilled into Ao Shan's consciousness. In this indoctrination, Ao Shan experienced a long time travel, as if he had experienced it himself. The history of the deep sea monster unfolded in front of Ao Shan like a thick history book. Darkness, endless darkness, like a nightmare, kept turning in Ao Shan's mind, torturing Ao Shan's thinking, erasing Ao Shan's will, and wanted to turn Ao Shan into a slave of darkness. In a trance, Ao Shan came back to his senses, and then a heavy gasp sounded in the ocean. Ao Shan's breathing was like thunder, constantly ringing in the ocean. No, the history of the dark abyss is too heavy. With my current history, I can't compete with it at all. Forget it, let's fulfill the promise to the little turtle first. Ao Shan, who gave up integrating the history of the dark abyss at this time, finally remembered the agreement between himself and the little turtle. Ao Shan's consciousness swept through the scales on his body, looking for the existence of the little turtle among the dense scales. At this time, the 3 days of thinking time agreed by Ao Shan and the little turtle had actually passed long ago, but Ao Shan had foresight and knew that he could not complete the experiment within 3 days. So Ao Shan slowed down the thinking time of the little turtle through his consciousness, making 1 day of the little turtle equal to several days of Ao Shan. As for when the 3 days of the little turtle can pass, it depends on when Ao Shan remembers the existence of the little turtle again. In the scales defense, Ao Shan finally found the existence of the little turtle. With the end of Ao Shan's consciousness interference, 3 days passed in the little turtle's consciousness. A plain voice sounded in the little turtle's consciousness. How are you thinking? Coming back from meditation, the little turtle has regained his composure at this time. Compared with the previous crazy attitude of being willing to pay any price for revenge, the little turtle at this time has no such hysterical madness, but instead has a kind of city that hides all thoughts in his heart. Although the little turtle was still a little immature at this time. Facing Ao Shan's question, the little turtle calmly replied, "Revenge is certain, but you must be fully prepared. As you said, your own strength is the capital for revenge." Ao Shan was not dissatisfied with the little turtle calling him big brother. It was obvious that Ao Shan acquiesced to the relationship between him and the little turtle, So Aoshan said again, in this case, do you still want to accept my help? Let you become strong quickly? In response to Aoshan's question, the little turtle answered without hesitation, of course, why not? I believe in you, big brother, come on. Since you have decided, then I will start. As Aoshan's voice fell, Aoshan's powerful Yuan Shen enveloped the little turtle's body, and a drop of golden Zhuanhuang blood squeezed out from the gap in Aoshan's scales. Under the control of Aoshan's Yuan Shen, it passed through the little turtle's mouth and entered the little turtle's body, thus starting the transformation of the little turtle's body. The Zhuanhuang blood, which has the ability to fuse the genes of all things, just entered the body of the little turtle. The dragon genes in the Zhuanhuang blood quickly began to fuse with the original body genes of the little turtle. In this fusion process, the little turtle inherited the history of the dragon clan and became part of the expansion of the dragon clan's history line. Countless spiritual energy of heaven and earth spontaneously gathered around the little turtle, waiting for the soul particles in the little turtle's body to manifest, and then combined with the soul particles of the little turtle to achieve the inner elixir of the little turtle. The existence of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is like money. It will only appear spontaneously in front of the strong. What is a strong person? Those who obey the rules and are rewarded by the rules. Those who violate the rules and plunder the power of the rules. The original rules of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth favor those who violate the rules, just like money will automatically appear in the eyes of bank robbers. And now, as Aoshan suppressed the prehistoric races and plundered a large amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth, Aoshan also became a strong man who made rules. At this time, Aoshan has the right to distribute the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that belongs to him. Those who obey the rules and help the rules grow and develop according to the conditions set by the rules will be rewarded by the rules. Just like those who help the country grow and develop, they will automatically be protected by the power of the country. Those who violate the rules, specifically break the rules, and seek the power of the rules will get the spoils of breaking the rules. Just like robbing a bank, you will instantly gain a huge fortune. No mistakes. One song, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar, one look. The difference between the two is that the former is difficult to grow, and the benefits obtained usually take time to wear out, but the benefits obtained are huge. The latter grows rapidly, and as long as they can withstand the counterattack of the rules, they will gain huge wealth in the short term. But they will be endlessly hunted down by the rules. Just like bank robbers will be constantly wanted by national forces. The favor of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that the little turtle obtained came from the favor of Aoshan. Aoshan plundered more than half of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the entire prehistoric world. Although he will be counted by the prehistoric world in the future, at least now, Aoshan is a rule maker who can give the little turtle a lot of spiritual energy of heaven and earth to improve his physical fitness. For example, Aoshan is the one who robbed the bank. At this time, Aoshan withstood the attack of the bank's guards and gained a large sum of wealth. At this time, Aoshan, who has obtained a large sum of wealth, distributes part of his wealth to those who are willing to support him, so as to gain the growth of his own power and resist the next backlash attack in the future. If Aoshan successfully overthrows the existing rules of the prehistoric world, then Aoshan is a new rule maker, the distributor of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the prehistoric world. If Aoshan can't withstand the counterattack of the prehistoric rules, naturally everything will disappear. Thank you for the 100 starting coins reward from Kanchenj, Angeltius, and the Red Star Republic. Thank you for the 500 starting coins reward from Zushi and Ideo. Thanks to 201710182102244441 for the reward of 100 Kidian coins. Chapter 32, Flames of Revenge. Under the control of Aoshan's Yuan Shen, the dragon gene and the Zhuanhuang blood gradually merged with the material gene of the little turtle itself. In this process, the pain of gene fragmentation and recombination constantly impacted the little turtle's brain, causing the little turtle's consciousness to constantly wander on the edge of life and death. Just as Li Hao could not help Aoshan forcefully survive the catastrophe of Yuan Shen, Aoshan could not help the little turtle survive the pain in consciousness. In the initial stage of the birth of prehistoric wisdom, everything required the creatures at this time to use their own lives to forcibly wade out a bloody path. Just like the little turtle at this time, fused with the dragon gene, Aoshin could have directly knocked the little turtle unconscious, so that it would not have to endure the pain of gene fragmentation and fusion. But Aoshin could not do this. Once Aoshin meddled in other people's business, and allowed the little turtle to directly advance to the realm of the energy core without enduring the catastrophe of gene fusion, the little turtle's death would come in an instant. Imagine that after a patient undergoing surgery is given anesthesia, when he wakes up again, his perception of his body will be reduced to an extremely terrible level, so that he cannot accurately control his body. The same is true for the little turtle. Once the little turtle is in a coma, when the little turtle wakes up again, because the little turtle has not experienced the catastrophe of life and death, it cannot make the soul particles in the body appear, and the inner elixir cannot be formed. At this time, there are high energy genes in the body of the little turtle, and these high energy genes will automatically gather the spiritual energy of heaven and earth around its body. Imagine an uncontrollable body, which constantly gathers enough energy to make itself disappear into ashes. Once the energy balance in the body is destroyed, it will end in death in an instant. If the historical heritage of the dragon clan is strong enough, then the little turtle can use the various exercises in the historical heritage to allow itself to integrate the genes of the dragon clan in a safe way. Instead of taking this chance, forcibly integrating the genes of the dragon clan, so that the little turtle must endure endless pain. But there is no if in this world. If Aoshin and the little turtle had not paved a bloody road with their lives, the dragon race would never rise. Just like Edison's experiment to invent the light bulb, the little turtle finally completed the fusion of Aoshin's dragon genes, after enduring the pain of nearly 10,000 gene collapses and recombination. The genes of Xuanhuang blood took root deep in the physical body of the little turtle, thus forming an illusory energy core, and in this energy core existed the Yuanshan that the little turtle was nurturing, or also called the soul. Aoshin looked at the little turtle, which had changed a lot at this time, and said with a little awakening, "How are you?" The little turtle shook his head and said, "It's okay, just a little tired." But it was obvious that the little turtle was lying. At this time, the breath of the little turtle was like a candle in the wind in Aoshin's perception, and it was possible to go out at any time. However, Aoshin did not question the little turtle's lies, because Aoshin knew that the little turtle with a deep blood feud would never allow himself to fall before revenge was completed. The cold sea water slowly flows over the bodies of Aoshin and the little turtle, like the caress of a lover, so gentle and soft. Compared with its previous image, the little turtle has undergone earth-shaking changes. The snake-like head has become a dragon head covered with scales, and the tortoise shell on its body has also emerged with mysterious tracks, as if it has experienced the vicissitudes of time. The limbs that were originally like fins have also become thick thighs with 4 claws. Compared with the previous image of the turtle, the little turtle at this time can also be called a dragon turtle. Strictly speaking, there are only 2 dragons at this time, Aoshin and the little turtle that has just turned into a dragon. In Aoshin's consciousness, all lives with the dragons Xuanhuang blood are dragons, and the specific external image is just an appearance. Moreover, the blood hierarchy between Xuanhuang blood is strict. As the ancestor of the dragon clan, Aoshin has absolute control over other dragons with Xuanhuang blood. The relationship between the higher dragon clan and the lower dragon clan can be described as life and death. The pressure from the higher dragons can quickly make the lower dragons surrender. Just like the dragon turtle that has become a dragon at this moment, it has a faint sense of trembling when facing Aoshin. This is the pressure from the depths of its blood. Since the formation of the dragon clan, everything has been determined by the status of the monarch and the ministers. Aoshin looked at the dragon turtle who was slowly adjusting his body and restoring his body to its original state, and suddenly remembered the name that Li Hao had given him. For some reason, every move of this self-proclaimed Yuan-Shi god had an indelible influence on Aoshin's consciousness. Out of the idea that every move of a strong man must have a deep meaning, Aoshin said solemnly to the dragon turtle, "Since you have accepted the Xuanhuang blood, it means that you have joined the dragon clan. So from today on, your name will be Aoling." Aoling opened his blue eyes, looked at Aoshin and said respectfully, "Everything is up to you, brother." The relationship between the two has unknowingly become distant. I really don't know whether I should cite the wonders of the world or the unpredictability of the soul. Aoling slowly regulates his physical condition through the inner elixir in his body. Through the resonance between the inner elixir and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and the attraction of the Zhuanghuang blood to the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, a large amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth enters his body, repairing the hidden injuries caused by gene fusion in his body. Unlike Aoshin's carelessness, Aoling is a very thoughtful dragon. After Aoshin was promoted to the inner Dan realm, he ate and killed. Apart from that, he just drifted around in the sea. He was a complete eater, and waited for death. No mistakes. Aoling carries a blood and deep hatred of the turtle race. Even though Aoling has joined the dragon race at this time, when he thinks of the nightmare at the beginning, Aoling has an impulse of anger rushing to his heart. But Aoling knows that with his current strength, he can't defeat the Golden Peking at all, even if he adds Aoshin. This is not to say that Aoshin can't beat the Golden Peking, it's just that Aoling wants the destruction of the entire sky race, not the death of the Golden Peking. Different goals, different methods of doing things. The flame of revenge is burning in Aoling's heart, like the purgatory fire that burns the 8 wastelands. Once it is born, it will cause a disaster that destroys the world. King Jinpeng, the sky race, I will completely wipe you out of this world. Chapter 33 Update Rules. Dear readers, this Sunday is the first recommendation for this book. I have decided to change from 2 updates a day to 3 updates a day, at 6 AM, 12 PM, and 6 PM respectively, with the additional updates starting from Sunday. Of course, if the results are promising, and I get the next recommendation, I will add one more update on the original basis, that is, 4 updates a day, and it will continue until the next Sunday, and so on, until it is put on the shelves. If the recommendations continue and nothing unexpected happens, all readers will be able to enjoy 6 updates a day. So whether this book can be updated 6 times a day depends on the support of all readers. Thank you for all. Chapter 34 The contradiction between macro and micro. In the deep sea, because of the lack of a large number of marine life, the ocean is undoubtedly a little quiet at this time. In this death-like silence, Aoling sensed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that was constantly pouring into his body around him, and sensed the process of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth making him stronger. In Aoling's perception, with the continuous influx of spiritual energy of heaven and earth, in his body, a substance similar to metal, was constantly merging with his body, thereby strengthening the strength of his body. Suddenly opening his pair of big dragon eyes, in Aoling's eyes, a burst of blue light shone on the dark ocean like a light bulb. Let the sea water shrouded in darkness light up a ray of light, and the sparkling sea water exuded moving colors in Aoling's eyes. Aoling looked at the world in his eyes with some doubts, and couldn't help but uttered, "What is this?" At this time in Aoling's eyes, the entire ocean was filled with various colors and lustres everywhere. These rainbow-like scenes constituted another unique world in Aoling's eyes. At this time, Aoling obviously didn't know that he had developed a magical power unintentionally, so that Aoling was still a little at a loss. Although Aoling didn't know what he had done, Li Hao knew what kind of magical power Aoling had developed. The first time Aoling developed his magical power, the god particles hidden in various places on the prehistoric star transmitted all the information that happened here to Li Hao's godhead. However, in just a moment, Li Hao mastered the function of this magical power, and derived it to an extreme. In Li Hao's consciousness, this magical power should be a magical power similar to the one that detects the mineral veins of the planet. It can be called the mineral vein detection eye. Li Hao used the mineral vein detection eye that had been deduced to the extreme, looking at various places on the Yuanxi star. But unlike the excitement, when he just got the mineral vein detection eye, Li Hao's face was so dark that ink was about to drip out. I said that there are always all kinds of inharmonious feelings when building natural environments. It turns out that the problem is here. Immediately, a model of a prehistoric star and a model of a primordial star appeared in Li Hao's hands, and the 2 models were used to compare the microscopic particle world of each planet. A serious problem appeared in front of Li Hao. As mentioned before, although Li Hao's god particle can create any material structure, such as the sun, through the simulation of the underlying world, These things are displayed on the primordial stars, but the premise of all this is the existence of samples. For example, to create the sun, it is necessary to explore the basic material structure of the sun. After collecting enough data, LiHeo can simulate it on the primordial stars. Similarly, the work that LiHeo has been doing, building various natural landscapes on the primordial stars, also requires the collection of various complex data before it can be built. It's just that the natural structures built by LiHeo before always have a sense of inharmoniousness, but LiHeo has never been able to find the reason for this inharmoniousness. And now, with the appearance of the magical power of the mineral vein detection eye, LiHeo has discovered the problem. In the past, when LiHeo built the natural environment on the Yuanxi star, he built it from a macroscopic perspective. Another way to put it is to build it from the overall structure. This way of building has artificial traces everywhere. No matter how well it is built, it is always inevitable to have traces of craftsmanship. For example, when people paint, the angle from which the painter observes the object is from the overall perspective. The things drawn from this angle are floating on the surface, which is the two-dimensional scroll that was popular in LiHeo's novels in his previous life. The existence of the natural environment is based on the three-dimensional world, a world that exists on the basis of material particles. In this world, everything starts from the world of microscopic particles. No matter how logical the artificial engineering is from the data, it is always inconsistent from a microscopic perspective. Because the angle from which life observes the world determines that they cannot make the most accurate modifications to the world of microscopic particles. Deviations are allowed in scientific research, but the natural rules are extremely strict. In the world of microscopic particles, once a particle is offset, the traces caused are the appearance of artificial traces. Let's use painting as an example. When nature paints, it depicts a three-dimensional scroll from the perspective of microscopic particles. All structures in this painting are the most coordinated templates. You can say that this template is not good looking, or that this template is unscientific, but you absolutely cannot deny that this template is the most coordinated. It is also the most real. On the earth, even the greatest painter cannot paint a person from the world of microscopic particles. Just like ants cannot depict the existence of human beings, once humans enter the world of microscopic particles, with the speed of human thinking, and the ability to bear information, it is absolutely impossible to complete the depiction of this three-dimensional painting. Life pursues perfection at the macro level, while nature pursues coordination at the micro level. The pursuit of perfection will inevitably affect the abandonment of coordination, thus causing the existence of artificial traces. The pursuit of coordination will inevitably destroy perfection, thus causing the existence of missing. I want fish, and I also want bear's paw. I can't have both. But I just want to get both fish and bear's paw in my hands. Isn't the meaning of life to challenge the limit? With the discovery of the problem, it is naturally time to solve the problem. Then, LiHeo began to control the God particles diffused in the Yuanxi star, and compared them with the microscopic particle world in the Hangliang star, making targeted modifications to the Yuanxi star. Before that, LiHeo stood up from the throne of the main god of the pantheon, and came to the center of the pantheon. LiHeo looked up, and saw a bright star above his head. This star was the Hangliang star. In the operating rules of the pantheon, every time the gods in the pantheon control a star, a projection of a star will be formed in the center of the pantheon, to show the glory of the gods. No mistakes. One sentence, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar, one look. At this time, the Hangliang star in the central starry sky of the pantheon gradually turned from virtual to real. After 500 years, when the Yuanxi star approaches the Hangliang star and takes in the strong men on the Hangliang star, the projection of the Hangliang star in the central starry sky will be completely solidified. One day, I will make the starry sky of the pantheon as bright and shining as the universe. Let everything in the universe dance in my hands. How shameful equals thank you Immortal King Junlin Jiu Shan for the reward of 500 starting coins. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Spiritual Vein Mineral Deposits. Lee Heo stretched out his right hand in the center of the pantheon. With his 5 fingers slightly open, a miniature simulated star slowly moved in Lee Heo's palm. This star was the original version of the Hanhuang star, which was the version presented by the Hanhuang star when Lee Heo first encountered it. Compared with the Hanhuang star, which is now close to the modified version, the original version of the Hanhuang star is more reference for Lee Heo. Lee Heo's goal is to learn the structure of the Hanhuang star, so as to complete the carving of the Hanhuang star from scratch in both macroscopic and microscopic states. Treat the Hanhuang star in his hand as a work of art and complete his structural analysis of the Hanhuang star. The so-called learning from nature. The best way to become stronger is always to learn from those who are stronger than yourself. For Lee Heo, the only thing he can find stronger than himself at this time is the ancient stars in the universe. Lee Heo stared at the simulated star in his hand, watching it constantly collapse and reshape, and he became more skilled in the process and simulated the simulated star closer to the Hanhuang star. At this rate, I want to complete the construction of this star before the end of the universe. It seems that it is a stupid idea to build a car behind closed doors. I will go to Hanhuang star someday and thoroughly understand the basic structure of Hanhuang star. As he said, Lee Heo pinched the simulated star in his hand and exploded it, turning it into a ray of starlight in his palm, scattered on the flawless ground of the Temple of the Gods, and then merged into it. After destroying the simulated star in his hand, Lee Heo looked in the direction of Hanhuang star, formed his eyes with God particles, and looked at the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that was constantly active in Hanhuang star. In this way, I can solve the problem of the activity of the spiritual energy of Hanhuang star after I leave. Dividing line. As Lee Heo discovered the secret of the world of microscopic particles, Lee Heo thought of a way to make his God particles lurk deeper in Hanhuang star. That is to create spiritual veins and mineral deposits, and by implanting God particles in the major mountains on Hanhuang star, various spiritual energy circulation systems that can circulate back and forth can be created. In this way, the activity of the spiritual energy of the world on Hanhuang star can be maintained, so that the spiritual energy of the world on Hanhuang star can still remain active for a period of time, after leaving the control of God particles. After all, after Yuanxi star arrives at Hanhuang star and accepts the ascenders, Yuanxi star will jump out of the original star system for a period of time, and during this period of time, the God particles on Hanhuang star will be in a silent state. After losing the control of God particles, the spiritual energy of the world on Hanhuang star will disappear quickly until the God particles become active again. The spiritual energy of the world will gradually recover. Thinking of this, Lee Heo's eyebrows moved, and he said with some sudden enlightenment, "Isn't this the end of the law era?" But in the blink of an eye, Lee Heo threw this idea behind his mind. For Lee Heo, instead of thinking about those useless things, it is better to realize his ideas first. Action is always more important than ideas. No matter how beautiful the idea is, if you don't do it, it is just a dream. As Lee Heo's will moved, the God particles far above the Hanhuang star received Lee Heo's order. Immediately, a large number of God particles lurking on the Hanhuang star began to infiltrate the major mountains on the Hanhuang star. And in these infiltrated mountains, a spiritual energy production device composed of God particles was formed. This spiritual energy production device was named Lingyuan by Lee Heo. This spiritual source composed of God particles has the function of transforming the material particles in the mountains into the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After the God particles transform the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in large quantities, once the Yuanxi star leaves the original star system, the interference area of the Yuanxi star is separated from the Hanhuang star, and the God particles are in a silent state. Then the spiritual energy of heaven and earth left on the prehistoric star can still support for a period of time. It won't destroy Lee Heo's efforts of more than 1,000 years. In the world of microscopic particles, a large number of God particles lurk in the major mountains, rivers, plains, and seas. These spiritual sources composed of God particles begin to produce a large number of spiritual energy of heaven and earth. As the spiritual energy of heaven and earth on the prehistoric star becomes more and more under the infection of the spiritual source, the underlying material structure of the entire prehistoric star is undergoing earth-shaking changes. Various metal deposits began to evolve in a harder and more resilient direction, just as the change in the structure of the material body of life can promote the evolution of life. Various dead things composed of material particles on the prehistoric star can also evolve after changing the material structure. In fact, in the final analysis, whether it is the body of life or the mountains, rivers, etc. are called dead things. They are just objects of different structures composed of material particles. Except for the soul particles possessed by life, there is no difference between the two in the world of microscopic particles. Moreover, maybe in the future, if a large number of powerful people with ascension died after the ascension collapsed, the large number of soul particles that were dispersed would give life to these dead things in the process of evolution. As Lee Hao's various big moves unfolded in the microscopic particle world of Han Huang Star, an idea gradually emerged from Lee Hao's mind. In the legend of the earth, after Pangu, the great god of creation, died, he turned into all things and gave birth to all living beings. Could it be that this is how it came about? After Pangu's death, his physical body changed from the world of microscopic particles, thus forming all kinds of mountains, rivers, mountains and plains. And Pangu's soul particles were scattered throughout the entire prehistoric world, thus giving birth to all living beings in the prehistoric world. The ascension that did not completely disintegrate became the innate gods. As a part of Pangu, they possessed part of the authority over the prehistoric world. There is no mistake in the poem, the content, the book, and the bar. This also created their great power to live, as long as the heaven and earth and shine as brightly as the sun and the moon. And those ascension that completely disintegrated were reborn in the prehistoric world, thus giving rise to the existence of all living beings in the prehistoric world. It seems that I have no shortage of methods to give birth to a large number of soul particles. If there is a lack of soul particles, all living beings on the prehistoric planet can be killed directly. Let their physical bodies turn into mountains, rivers, and land. Soul particles turn into living beings on the prehistoric planet. This way, I will never lack intelligent races to derive civilizations. What a perfect idea. I'm such a genius. Thanks to the Red Star Republic for the 100 starting point coins reward. Chapter 36 Elemental Golden Elixir. In the Temple of the Gods, Lee Hao was proud of his various guesses. In the depths of the ocean of Han Huang Star, Aoling, who had just awakened unintentionally, was observing the surroundings of the ocean through the mineral vein detection eye, looking at the various mineral veins contained in the ocean. Of course, at this time, Aoling did not know that the color light he saw was the metal element in the ocean. Aoling just summarized what he observed, based on his own experience. In Aoling's eyes, wherever there is colored light, there are almost all places where life exists. And the more complex the colors of these lights, the stronger their life fluctuations. Especially Aoshan, who was circling nearby, was simply a large colored sun, and his powerful aura almost suppressed all the life fluctuations around him. Even Aoling himself felt a little uncomfortable. When the mineral vein detection eye was not opened, Aoling only had a little trembling feeling about Aoshan. This trembling feeling is like facing an elder in a high position. There is a trace of longing in the trembling. After the vein detection eye is opened, this trembling feeling is rapidly heating up, almost turning into a fear of facing death. Ah! A scream roared out from Aoling's mouth, and the huge sound shook the water flow of the ocean, and tiny whirlpools formed around Aoling. At the moment, when Aoling screamed, Aoshan's slender dragon body quickly formed a layer of defense around Aoling. Under Aoshan's mobilization, the spiritual energy of the surrounding heaven and earth directly formed a layer of ice crystal defense. The powerful Yuan Shen mobilized the surrounding spiritual energy, and in an instant, a huge glacier was formed in the ocean within hundreds of kilometers near Aoshan's location. The deep cold and murderous aura, like a cold winter, permeated around Aoshan. "How are you?" Aoshan's concerned voice sounded beside Aoling. "No, it's okay. Let's go to the deeper ocean first." As Aoling's voice fell, Aoshine took Aoling to the deep sea like a wisp of smoke. And not long after Aoshine and Aoling left, a winged bird with a wingspan of more than 20 meters happened to pass by in the sky area above the glacier. Looking at the glacier formed in the ocean, the winged bird said excitedly, "The creature that the king is looking for has finally appeared. I have to report to the king quickly." Immediately, the wings of the winged bird opened and closed, and the air in front of the wing was directly cut in half. Without the obstruction of air, the winged bird shuttled through the long space distance in the blink of an eye, and arrived at the other end of the air cliff. This continued, but after a while, the winged bird disappeared directly in this sea area. In the deep sea, Aoshine swam towards the depths of the sea under the command of Aoling. The strong water pressure and the obstruction of the water flow seemed to be non-existent in front of Aoshine. However, in a short time, Aoshine traveled through a long ocean journey and arrived at the bottom of the ocean. After contacting the existence of the submarine land, Aoling moved towards the direction of the submarine spiritual vein under the protection of Aoshine. It wanted to verify its ideas in the submarine spiritual vein. In Aoling's vein detection eyes, in the place where Aoling's eyes can see, all places with complex colors and lights are places where a lot of spiritual energy gathers. In this kind of gathering judgment, there are two different forms of gathering. One is the spiritual energy that exists on the body of the strong. These spiritual energies obey the will of the strong, so that they can assist the strong to launch all kinds of devastating attacks. The other is to exist in the form of dead things. This way of gathering spiritual energy is called spiritual veins. In the prehistoric star, it is extremely difficult to reach the deep sea of the prehistoric star with only the material body of life. Unless it is a creature born in the deep sea, other creatures want to reach the deep sea, unless they reach the realm of the ascension, and can independently control the spiritual energy of the world around them, thus forming a protective barrier. Otherwise, any other life coming to the deep sea is a dead word. Of course, this does not mean that creatures born in the deep sea must be strong. To a certain extent, the existence of the dark abyss of the deep sea was caused by the inability of deep sea creatures to reach the shallow sea. Creatures born in the deep sea have adapted to the deep sea environment. Once they reach the shallow sea, these deep sea creatures will die because they cannot tolerate the shallow sea environment. The realm of the energy core can only passively strengthen their own physical body with the help of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and cannot change the essential structure of matter. Just like marine creatures cannot leave the water and fight in the sky or on land, creatures in other fields cannot fight for a long time in other fields before they reach the realm of ascension and can independently control the transformation of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to their bodies. The energy core can only help life strengthen its own physical fitness, and it cannot make land creatures grow wings, nor can it make marine creatures soar into the sky. Only the ascension realm is a starting point for the transformation of the physical body structure, and it is also the standard for the strong to fight all weather and all terrain. Under the protection of Aoshine, Aoling came to a place where complex colors shone in Aoling's eyes. Just standing here, Aoling can feel that his body is getting stronger. Some trace element are constantly merging into Aoling's body under the attraction of the energy core in Aoling's body, so that Aoling's body is passively evolving. Metal element, giant and realm. Aoling muttered to himself. These trace element integrated into Aoling's body are exactly the metal element that exist widely in nature. These metal element constantly strengthen Aoling's body, allowing Aoling's body energy level to continue to improve. If Aoling's body was flesh and blood before, then after these metal element were integrated into Aoling's body cells began the evolution process of metallization. If you use the technology of the earth to check these super creatures on the prehistoric planet, you will find that almost all of these super creatures are poisoned by heavy metals. However, at this time, the appearance of these strong men is still that of carbon-based life forms. The large amount of metal element integrated into their bodies are almost all beneficial element under the influence of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. And when these metal element are integrated into the bodies of carbon-based life forms, the material genes of these carbon-based life forms have also undergone major changes. This change can be called the optimization of genetic material genes. In a more mysterious way, the power of blood is increasing. Thank you for the 100 starting coins reward from the Pollution Emperor. Thank you for the 300 starting coins reward from the blood lamp and dry bones. Thank you for the 500 starting coins reward from the Emperor of Heaven. Chapter 37 True Body Transformation. In a spiritual vein canyon at the bottom of the deep sea of Hong Huang Star, Aoling stood quietly at the edge of the spiritual vein, feeling the spiritual energy of heaven and earth erupting from the spiritual veins on the seabed, and the metal element that continuously strengthened his body with the surge of spiritual energy of heaven and earth. An inexplicable feeling rose from Aoling's heart, with the golden elixir as a core, refining the spiritual energy of heaven and earth as hands and feet, controlling natural element as energy, and thus forging the supreme bloodline. This is the path I want to take. It is also the path that the Dragon Clan will take in the future. At this time, Hong Huang Star can truly be called the prehistoric era. There is no leader in everything. Whether it is the direction of cultivation or various ways to become stronger, they all do not exist. In this period, the way to become stronger in the prehistoric tribes, except relying on the most primitive body evolution, there is almost no room for choice. Therefore, as the only precocious Aoling in the entire Dragon Clan, as soon as he came into contact with the spiritual veins on the seabed, he had already determined his future path and the future path of the Dragon Clan. Looking around, the bottom of the entire ocean is almost full of colorful spiritual veins. Looking at the almost endless underwater spiritual veins at the bottom of the ocean, Aoling said with a slightly excited tone, "Brother, the resources for the Dragon Clan to grow stronger are here." Suddenly, the ocean near Aoling seemed to be under the control of some mysterious force. The seawater was no longer flowing, the energy was no longer flowing, and everything seemed to be still. Endless light bloomed on Aoshan's body, and a vast amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth was constantly compressed and solidified under the control of Aoshan's Yuanshan. Aoshan's huge dragon body was constantly shrinking from a behemoth of hundreds of kilometers, shrinking, and shrinking, until it finally shrank into a 2-meter tall humanoid creature. A long black hair was scattered on Aoshan's shoulders, and his resolute face was like a knife, with clear edges and corners. From time to time, a sharp light flashed in his cyan pupils, like the eyes of a god, ruthless and indifferent. According to the form that Li Hao had shown in front of Aoshan, Aoshan used a highly compressed method to forcibly transform the material particles of his body from a behemoth of hundreds of kilometers into the human form of today. Although Aoshan's body has become very small, Aoshan's strength has not weakened at all. If you want to compare, the previous Aoshan is equivalent to a huge mountain. Once it falls from the sky, it will bring despair to the enemy, and still despair. But at this time, Aoshan is equivalent to a warhead of amazing quality. Once it falls from the sky, it will penetrate all obstacles. The difference between the two is like a heavy hammer and a warhead made of the same mass as the heavy hammer. In addition to the different forms of expression, it only brings death to the enemy. At this time, Aoshan's existence is equivalent to forcibly compressing a huge mountain of hundreds of kilometers into an object of 2 meters in size. The contact area is reduced, the mass remains unchanged, and the pressure caused will be amazing. If it weren't for Aoshan's Yuanshan wrapping the surface of his body, Aoshan might have sunk directly into the earth's crust at this time. Aoshan moved his legs, that had just transformed, experiencing the feeling of being different from his own body, even though Aoshan was very dissatisfied with his form at this time. However, the spontaneous condensation of the spiritual energy of the surrounding heaven and earth forcibly dispelled Aoshan's dissatisfaction. Because of Li Hao's existence, the life in human form is almost born to be favored by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Although this favor is rarely inclined, once a race with human form appears, this slight inclination will cause a change in the entire prehistoric situation. Aoshan moved his unskilled legs and came to Aoling. Looking at Aoling, who was as tall as a mountain in front of him, Aoshan's heart did not fluctuate at all. On the contrary, when Aoling saw Aoshan's form, he constantly felt a little fear in his heart. This mentality is actually easy to understand. When a time bomb is next to you, you also have this mentality. Aoling saw Aoshan in this form, and asked in confusion, "Brother, what race is this?" Aoshan also said with doubt in his eyes, "I don't know. By the way, didn't you say you knew where the resource is to make the dragon race grow stronger? Tell me." Aoshan easily turned the topic back to the issue of the expansion of the dragon race. Compared with studying Lee Hao's performance, Aoshan was more concerned about the expansion of the dragon race. For Aoshan, it is not difficult to expand the number of dragons. As long as Aoshan radiates his soul to the maximum, he can transform all other races of life under the cover of his soul into the direction of the dragon race. Let the genetic structure of other races evolve towards the Zhuanghuang bloodline gene. It's just that the resources consumed in this way are too huge. And what is created is just a low-level dragon race. Zhuanghuang blood is a high-level bloodline. If it is transformed with the bloodline genes of other creatures, the resources needed will directly cause the death of the host. At that time, not only will the dragon race not be able to grow, but even the number of lives on the prehistoric planet will be indirectly reduced, thus forming an ecological extinction. At that time, Aoshan almost didn't need to think about it, and he could understand how the guy called Yuan Shi would deal with him. No mistakes, one sentence, one content, 1619, one book, one bar. Aoshan's words brought Aoling's thoughts back to the issue of the dragon race's growth. Brother, the resources for the dragon race to grow are in the mountains in the sea. What do you mean? Aoshan looked at the dark seabed mountains around him, and his eyes flashed with a questioning light. Brother, look. As soon as Aoling finished speaking, Aoshan felt that in the inheritance of Zhuanghuang blood, a new ability suddenly awakened. Through the connection between Zhuanghuang blood, the higher dragon race can accept the magical powers awakened by the lower dragon race. Similarly, the higher dragon race can also bury all kinds of inheritance in the blood, and with the inheritance of blood, it will be immortal in the world. Dragon pupil, a thought emerged in Aoshan's soul, and then Aoshan's blue pupils quickly brightened up like a light bulb, but after a while, the light dimmed. And this time, Aoshan saw the new world in Aoling's eyes. Brother, look, the light spread by the lives around here on their bodies is very similar to the light spread in the seabed mountain. Use your soul to absorb it again. Do you feel the strengthening of your body? Aoling's voice sounded in Aoshan's ears. As Aoling told him, Aoshan slowly sensed the strengthening of his body by the surrounding heaven and earth or a natural element. Although his body was too strong, it was not very obvious, but Aoshan still relied on the sensitivity of his soul to perceive the strengthening of his body. Moreover, compared with Aoling who could only passively accept the strength of his body, Aoshan was able to actively let the natural element strengthen his body in a targeted manner, thereby erasing his weaknesses bit by bit. With these resources, my dragon race will grow stronger, and no life will be able to stop it. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 38, Reversal of Situation. Aoshan's excited laughter sounded in the deep sea like thunder, and the joy revealed in the voice was almost undisguised. For Aoshan, the growth of the dragon clan seemed like a mission, weighing heavily on him. Although Aoshan didn't know why he had such psychological pressure, it didn't stop Aoshan from doing it. The intelligent life in the early days of the flood was so straightforward. Since you can't figure it out, just do it directly. When you reach a certain point, you will naturally understand it. This way of thinking is a way of thinking that was born to deal with the flood at this time. In the savage flood, the final result of sentimental or hesitant creatures is the result of being eliminated. Aoling, big brother, I will protect you here and wait for you to improve your strength to the Mahayana realm. Then you and I will start to spread the glory of my dragon clan to the entire sea. Aoshan said to Aoling with great pride. At this time, Aoshan didn't know what his words meant at all. The glory of the dragon race spreads to the entire sea, so what kind of catastrophe will other life groups in the sea suffer? That is the self-evident ending. The rise of a race will inevitably be accompanied by the destruction of countless races. This state of historical crushing will not be changed by the will of any life. Even in the powerful creatures, the principle they act on is nothing more than instilling their own will into the will of others. The so-called peace and justice are just a form of spreading the glory of history. In the vast ocean, there are a large number of spiritual veins. These spiritual veins hidden under the surface contain an infinite number of heaven and earth or as a natural element. The aura of heaven and earth is a tool for creatures to pry natural element, and the turmoil of natural element is the origin of all supernatural powers. At the edge of the spiritual vein of the underwater canyon, Aoling, under the protection of Aoshan, calmly retreated at the edge of the canyon. Empty all thoughts and let the aura of heaven and earth permeating the ocean drive the natural element in the mountains into Aoling's body. Let the natural element be like eating, so that Aoling's body will absorb them passively naturally, thereby strengthening Aoling's body. And the process of this natural sharp change of the body is to transform into history, to nourish Aoling's soul, so that Aoling's soul particles will increase rapidly, so as to combine with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, so that Aoling's soul will be sharpened into the Yuanshan. The strengthening of the Jiandan realm is passive strengthening. The process of reaching the Yuanshan realm from the Jiandan realm can only be achieved through water grinding kung fu or observing history. The so-called water grinding kung fu is to let it develop freely, just like eating, so that the body can naturally reach a limit value. This process is like a person growing up from childhood. No other operations are needed. You just need to wait for the passage of time to become very strong. And observing history is to summarize the experience of the predecessors, directly cross the accumulation of time, and use the predecessors' understanding of the changes in the body during the promotion process to forge various powerful physiques with the predecessors as samples. But now, Aoling does not have the conditions to observe history at all, so he can only rely on water grinding kung fu to make his body naturally stronger. Aoling recorded this process and summarized the process of becoming stronger, forming a system to form a powerful body of gods and demons. In the process of Aoling's dragon turtle body becoming stronger, all kinds of genetic evolution and the elimination of useless genes occurred. Everything in this process was recorded by Aoling's consciousness and Xuanhuang blood. Aoling remembered the genetic evolution process of his body, so that he could repair his weaknesses in a targeted manner when he was promoted to the Yuanshan realm in the future. And Xuanhuang blood was recorded in order to pass on the body of the dragon turtle, so as to form a branch of the dragon clan. In fact, Xuanhuang blood participated almost throughout the process of Aoling's evolution. With the powerful fusion ability of Xuanhuang blood and the elimination of useless genes, Aoling's evolution speed has increased by more than one level. Compared with Aoshan, who had to survive 9 deaths to get the help of Xuanhuang blood, thus completing the sharp change of the Mahayana body. At this time, Aoling was undoubtedly extremely lucky. Aoling not only got the help of Xuanhuang blood when Jindan was promoted to Yuanshan. After the promotion was completed, Aoling was still able to rely on the ability of Xuanhuang blood to continue to complete the sharp transformation of the Mahayana body. And this is the power of inheritance. Time passed quickly, and night and light alternated one after another. Under the impetus of time, the prehistoric world was undergoing earth-shaking changes. At that time, Kanglan Aoshan, as the first strongest person to be promoted to the Mahayana body, won the appreciation of Li Hao, and thus briefly gained the control of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the prehistoric star. And Kanglan Aoshan used this right to forcibly suppress the prehistoric races, thereby plundering a large amount of spiritual energy from heaven and earth, thus laying the foundation for the unstoppable trend of the rise of the dragon race in the future. However, this short-term strength cannot occupy the prehistoric star forever. With the continuous passage of time, the power of Kanglan Aoshan is gradually fading, and the fear brought to the prehistoric beings by the power is also constantly disappearing. When the power of Kanglan Aoshan completely subsides in the entire prehistoric star, the great trend of heaven and earth created by Aoshan with the power of heaven will be completely destroyed. By then, the backlash from other prehistoric races will also come. No mistakes. One post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar. On the prehistoric star, the great power of heaven and earth created by the dragon race is slowly fading. And at this time, the sky race that is constantly active in the sky of the prehistoric star is also constantly accelerating the time for this power to fade. The sky race led by King Jinpeng is soaring freely over the entire prehistoric star, because the place where the sky race is located is naturally the outpost for the god particles to arrive at the prehistoric star. The speed of the sky race is far greater than that of other prehistoric races on the prehistoric star. It can almost be said that the sky race is in an absolute advantage in all other aspects, except that the strongest person, King Jinpeng, has not reached the Mahayana realm. Once King Jinpeng is completely promoted to the Mahayana realm, the future trend of the rise of the dragon race will completely dissipate. the great prosperity will be quickly reversed, and it will become a doomed trend. Boom. 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 The sound of thunder roared continuously in the sky. In the sky, the Sky Palace was formed by the powerful magic power of King Jinpeng and the entire golden winged Dapan bird clan. King Jinpeng was like a god who dominated the world, with sharp eyes staring at the lower world. Thank you to the immortal King Junlin Jiushan for the 100 starting coins reward. Thank you to Ulfshi Chunkyu 1234 for the 100 starting coins reward. Thank you to the Red Star Republic for the 500 starting coins reward. Chapter 39, Sky Palace. Outside the thundering Sky Palace, a huge wind-winged bird that tore through countless thunders crossed countless thundercloud storms and arrived at the edge of the Sky Palace. Then, under the summons of King Jinpeng, he entered the Sky Palace with the guidance of the guards. The Sky Palace is a huge palace located in the thunderstorm clouds. Because this palace is condensed from countless clouds, it has caused the scene of thunder and lightning almost every day outside the palace. A circular passage shining with dazzling light extends from the Sky Palace to the outside of the Sky Palace. Two huge birds shuttled through the circular passage and flew straight into the Sky Palace. The wind-winged bird looked at the big bird leading him to the Sky Palace in front of him and secretly rejoiced in his heart. I have made such a great contribution this time. I wonder how the king will reward me. I'm really looking forward to it. Time will eventually pass, and soon, the two huge birds arrived at the Sky Palace. In the Sky Palace, there is a huge tree rooted in endless clouds. This tree is called Thunderwood. It lives on the lightning energy condensed by thunder clouds. It is a sacred tree formed by the manner of the golden winged Dapan clan. At the top of the Thunderwood, a huge bird, King Jinpeng, stands quietly on the top of the Thunderwood like a towering mountain. On each branch of the Thunderwood, there are strong men from the golden winged Dapan clan. Almost all of the strong men who can exist on the Thunderwood are strong men in the Yuanshan realm. They can use their Yuanshan power to use the thundercloud energy absorbed by the Thunderwood to strengthen their bodies and strengthen their Yuanshan. King Jinpeng looked at the wind-winged bird led in by the guards. His sharp eyes calmly watched the arrival of the wind-winged bird, waiting for the wind-winged bird to explain its purpose. At this time, there was no red tape in the Sky Clan. As long as the members of the Sky Clan thought it was important, they could meet the king of the Sky Clan, King Jinpeng, at any time. At this time, the wind-winged bird was undoubtedly very nervous, as a bird that had just been promoted to the Jiandan realm and had opened its wisdom not long ago. Suddenly facing the group of strong people in the entire sky race, it would be a lie to say that he was not nervous. Even if the birds in the Yuanshan realm on the thunder tree glanced at him carelessly, the wind-winged bird was terrified. In the sky race, all birds that have reached the Jiandan realm can be called sky birds. Compared with those ordinary birds, these birds with wisdom are the foundation of the sky race. In the sky race, the types of sky birds are divided into lower level sky birds, Jiandan realm, middle level sky birds, Yuanshan realm, and upper level sky birds, Jinpeng king. There is only one upper level sky bird in the entire sky race. Lower level sky bird, Zunfeng pays homage to the king. The reason why I'm here to meet the king this time is that I have discovered traces of the existence of the alien strongman that the king offered a reward for back then. Please let the king know. Zunfeng respectfully described what he saw and heard in detail, not daring to hide anything. At this time, as Zunfeng's voice continued to utter, the middle-level bird on the Thunderwood was constantly scanning Zunfeng's whole body with its own soul power to ensure the correctness of Zunfeng's words. And this cautious measure is also a way to maintain order among the sky race. After all, no bird is idle and wants to try the taste of being watched by a group of predators. As Zunfeng described what he saw and heard without revealing a trace, the air pressure around the golden Peking standing on the top of the Thunderwood was also constantly decreasing, and a fatal pressure spread throughout the Sky Palace. At this time, whether it was the powerful soul-level bird or the weak wind-winged bird Zunfeng, they didn't dare to breathe. At this time, as the air pressure of the golden Peking in the Sky Palace continued to decrease, many soul-level birds on the Thunderwood recalled the terrifying scene again. That day was when the alien strongman dominated the whole world, and the power that oppressed the whole world knocked the sky race down from the sky to the lower world. Countless powerful birds fell to the ground in a mess. Although no casualties were caused, the sense of shame rose in the hearts of every bird. As birds flying in the sky, they had never been so embarrassed. However, because of the strength of the alien strongman, the sky race was powerless to resist. At that time, the pride of the sky race was almost completely shattered, and that day, the Sky Palace was established. King Jinpeng summoned the strong men of the entire Golden Winged Dap and Bird clan to build the existence of the Thunderwood. Through the Thunderwood, the thunder energy in the sky was continuously absorbed, thereby strengthening the war potential of the sky race and promoting the centralization of the sky race. During that time, it can almost be called a nightmare for the entire sky race. During that time, the irritable King Jinpeng either imprisoned his subordinates who made mistakes for life or completely wiped them out. This high-pressure state continued until the Sky Palace was completely completed, and it finally ended. In fact, the Sky Palace is not only a place to breathe Thunderwood, it is also a super weapon used by King Jinpeng to fight against the strong men in the Mahayana realm. The Thunderwood can gather the power of the entire sky race, and thus launch a devastating blow. The power of this blow can almost penetrate the entire ocean and send the attack to the deep sea. A deep voice echoed in the Sky Palace. Notify all the sky birds to assemble immediately. 3 days later, follow me to run across the sea and complete the encirclement and suppression of the alien strongman. King Jinpeng's words echoed throughout the Sky Palace like a god's oracle. Subordinates obey the king's orders. All the sky birds replied in unison. Immediately, the winged bird Swiftwind was directly driven out of the Sky Palace. The next thing was the strategic meeting of the sky race. With the level of the winged bird Swiftwind, he was not qualified to participate. No mistakes. 1 song, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 look. After being driven out of the Sky Palace by King Jinpeng, Zunfeng was undoubtedly confused at this time. Where are the promised rewards? Where are the promised benefits? Are they all bullshit? A feeling of indignation rose in Zunfeng's heart. For Zunfeng, the reason why he worked so hard to convey the traces of the alien strongman this time was for the reward promised by King Jinpeng. But now everything has gone down the drain. There is almost no reward, and it can only be a wasted trip. Of course, Zunfeng absolutely does not have the courage to enter the Sky Palace again and ask King Jinpeng for the reward he deserves. After hesitating for a moment outside the Sky Palace, Zunfeng could only admit that he was unlucky and chose to leave helplessly. While the sky race was holding a combat meeting in the deep sea, Aoling's promotion had been completed. Chapter 40, Secret. In the deep sea spiritual vein canyon, a handsome young man with a golden ratio is lying quietly at the bottom of the canyon, with his eyes closed, like a stone. The sea water flows slowly around it. If it weren't for the young man's chest still rising and falling slightly, people might think it is a dead thing when they see its life. After all, in this world, human life forms do not exist. Under the influence of the young man's yuanshan, the spiritual energy of the surrounding heaven and earth quickly gathers into the young man's body like a young swallow returning to its nest. After these spiritual energies of heaven and earth circulate in the young man's body for a week, they are marked with the mark of the young man's yuanshan, thus becoming the young man's own mana. And these spiritual energies of heaven and earth that become the mana of the young man will attract the material particles in the nearby mountains, thus forming the flesh and blood body of the young man. This scene lasted for a long time, until one day, the young man's tightly closed eyes suddenly opened, and a pair of blue pupils emitted a little light, illuminating the dark sea bed around him. Aoling's blue pupils looked at the dark sea around him calmly, and then he thought about it, and the mana in his body began to circulate. At the bottom of the sea, Aoling stood up straight from the bottom of the sea like a stiff corpse. He moved his body slightly, and the bones around him moved slightly. The sound of the bones all over his body formed a sound wave barrier, which shook the seawater near Aoling away by 1 foot. After the energy of the sound wave completely dissipated, the surrounding seawater returned to Aoling again, clinging to Aoling's body. With a slightly stiff step, Aoling walked out of the canyon and came to the outside of the canyon, where Aoshan was sitting on a reef board, waiting for Aoling to appear. Coming to Aoshan, Aoling asked Aoshan in confusion, "Brother, how did you get promoted to the Mahayana realm? Why can I only get promoted to the Yuanshan extreme realm and can no longer be promoted?" Aoshan thought about Aoling's question for a moment, and then guessed, Jindan realm, Yuanshan realm, you only need a guide to continuously promote. And the Mahayana realm. Aoshan paused, and then continued, the promotion of the Mahayana realm requires summarizing your own path. Your own path. Aoling muttered to himself. That's right, the promotion of the Mahayana realm requires finding your own path. You can learn from my path for the promotion of the first two realms, and I can give you guidance. And the promotion of the Mahayana realm requires you to find a path for yourself. Aoshan said very affirmatively. In fact, Aoshan himself did not understand the specific promotion conditions of the Mahayana realm, but Aoshan accurately guessed the truth, based on his feeling of being promoted to the Mahayana realm. It was like an intuition, telling Aoshan the answer accurately. However, in fact, this guess, which Aoshan thought was intuitive, was the secret of heaven conveyed to Aoshan by Li Hao on the Yuanshi star. The Yuanshan is a kind of signal receiving device. The more powerful the Yuanshan is, the faster it can receive accurate information from the outside world. After reaching the Yuanshan of the Mahayana realm, Aoshan can even cross the distance of the universe and receive the information from Li Hao. And this kind of information has another name, that is, thinking. Through Aoshan's Yuanshan, Li Hao told Aoshan the specific conditions required for his promotion to the Mahayana realm, which made Aoshan have this terrible intuition. In the deep sea of Hong Huang Star, Aoling believed in the answer that Aoshan said. In Aoling's view, Aoshan, as a super strong man who has been promoted to the Mahayana realm, must be the truth. Find your own way, how can you find it? Aoling muttered to himself. For Aoling, this vague answer is as abstract as asking a person to find his life goal. Looking at Aoling who was lost in thought, Aoshan stood up from the reef, and with the push of the water flow, he came to Aoling's side and patted Aoling's shoulder gently. Since you can't figure it out for the time being, let it go for the time being. Follow me, big brother, to complete the growth of the dragon clan. Maybe in the process of the growth of the dragon clan, you may be able to find your own way and be promoted to the Mahayana realm. Aoshan's reminder interrupted Aoling from deep thought. In the end, Aoling could only nod and say, okay. Immediately, a huge blue dragon swam out of the deep sea and headed towards the upper sea. Because only there is the existence of marine life. After the blue dragon left, Aoling, who turned into a dragon turtle, also slowly wandered in the direction of the blue dragon. The ability of the Jindan realm is not enough to reach the deep sea, on the one hand, because the strength of the body of the Jindan realm cannot withstand the pressure of the deep sea. On the other hand, it is because the golden core realm uses limbs to move. If you want to reach the deep sea from the shallow sea, the physical strength required is enough to tire any life to death. When you reach the Yuanshan realm, it is equivalent to having the ability to sustain endurance. The Yuanshan realm can not only actively absorb the material particles carried by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, so as to strengthen your body's weaknesses in a targeted manner. It can also control all kinds of natural energy between heaven and earth, thereby creating all kinds of unpredictable great powers. Just like letting the sea water automatically separate, the water current pushes itself forward, and a thought creates all kinds of heaven and earth anomalies and other divine powers. If the golden core realm is equivalent to a powerful reckless man, he can only rely on his own magic power to forcibly mobilize the natural energy between heaven and earth. Then the Yuanshan realm is equivalent to a scientist. They can use various lever principles to pry the largest natural energy with the least effort. And now, Aoling, who once entered the deep sea and needed Aoshan's protection to survive. No mistakes, one post, one content, one book, one bar, 1619, one book, one bar, one look. However, he was able to use the power of his soul to mobilize the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and the ocean at will. He used the influence of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth on natural element, so that the sea water pushed his body to move forward to the shallow sea area. The energy consumed in this process was almost zero. In the silent ocean, Aoshan and Aoling, the two dragons, were pushed by the sea water and moved towards the sea area where life species gathered. Under the observation of Longtong, all the marine species in the ocean that Aoshan and Aoling could see were almost exposed to Aoshan and Aoling's eyes. In Long Tong's vision, the whole world was composed of complex colors. The more complex and brighter the color, the more likely it was that there were sea areas where life species existed. Because only in the body of life species, there are multiple combinations of natural element. Most of the other natural element contained in the veins are single colors. Just like there are various trace metal element in the human body, there are also a large number of trace metal element in the carbon-based life forms on the prehistoric star. By observing the locations of these trace metal element, Long Tong has the magical power to find the direction of life. Chapter 41 Cedar. The two dragons Aoshan and Aoling searched for traces of marine life in the ocean through the observation of their dragon pupils. They wanted to pass on the genetic structure of Zuan Huang blood through the flesh of these marine life, in order to expand the scale of the dragon race. However, due to the various disasters before, almost only 1 in 10 marine life survived. It was still difficult for the two dragons Aoshan to find a large enough marine life group in a short time. In the cold sea water, the two dragons Aoshan and Aoling searched for the existence of marine life groups. At this time, the ocean was in a state of regular reorganization due to the collapse of the old food chain. In the process of the new formation of this food chain, the powerful marine life lost the existence of the hunting area, so they were forced by reality to embark on a wandering journey. These marine life drifted around in the ocean, hoping to find enough food sources to support the existence of their own groups. In fact, on the way of Aoshan and Aoling to find marine life groups, they did not encounter the existence of marine life groups. It's just that almost all the marine life that Aoshan encountered had no physique that could withstand the Zuan Huang blood structure. Once the gene structure of Zuan Huang blood is injected into its body, most of the consequences are genetic collapse and death. Even if some of them can survive, they will die due to various reasons. After the construction of Zuan Huang blood structure in other marine creatures failed again, Aoshan said irritably, "Why is there no powerful creature that can withstand the blood of my dragon clan?" The energy required to construct the blood of the dragon clan is extremely huge, and ordinary marine creatures simply cannot withstand the heavy pressure of dragon blood. Once dragon blood is forcibly injected into other organisms to induce genetic mutation, the consequence is usually the death of the host. This is like implanting a lion's heart in the human body. Not to mention the rejection reaction, just the blood circulation speed provided by the lion's heart to the human body can directly cause the human body to collapse. And the same is true for dragon blood. Although dragon blood will not produce a rejection reaction with the host's own genes due to its special reasons. However, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth required to transform the host's genetic structure into the dragon clan's genetic structure is an extremely large amount. The reason why Aoshan was able to turn Aoling's blood into dragon blood was entirely because Aoshan, relying on his own spiritual power, directly gathered a large amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy and injected it into Aoling's body, which completed Aoling's dragon transformation process. But the dragon race is going to become a powerful race all over the prehistoric world after all. How can it be possible to transform all the creatures in the prehistoric world with the power of Aoshan alone? This has become Aoshan's distress. Looking at the distressed Aoshan, Aoling, who had been observing for a long time, said, "Brother, in your mind, do you want the dragon race to become the largest race in the prehistoric world? Or become the strongest race in the prehistoric world?" Aoshan answered Aoling's question with doubt. "How do you say that?" Aoling's blue pupils looked at the dead bodies floating around, and a burst of emotion emerged in his heart. The corpses of marine creatures floating in front of Aoling at this time are so similar to the situation when the turtle clan suffered a catastrophe. They are all, because of their weak strength, so they become the playthings of the strong. The largest race in the prehistoric world is based on numbers. The strongest race in the prehistoric world is based on blood. If you want the dragon race to become the largest race in the prehistoric world, I have a way. But if you want the dragon race to become the strongest race in the prehistoric world, I can't do anything about it. After all, it is still very difficult to find a group of marine creatures that can withstand dragon blood. Aoling put the right to choose in front of Aoshan in a casual manner, waiting for Aoshan's decision. It seems that the strongest race in the prehistoric world is not feasible for the time being. Then tell me how to become the largest race in the prehistoric world, Aoshan said, after thinking for a while. The way to become the #1 clan in the prehistoric world is very simple. It's all about reproduction. The birth of all living creatures cannot be separated from the mating of males and females. As long as you change the way dragon blood reproduces, let the dragon blood be bred in its mother's body through mating. At that time, relying on the fusion of dragon blood, the bloodline of the dragon clan will be able to spread quickly throughout the prehistoric world. By then, relying on the innate strength of the dragon clan, the bloodline of the dragon clan will exist in the blood of all living creatures in the prehistoric world. When the time is right, these descendants of dragons with some dragon blood will be able to grow naturally and join our dragon clan. Finally, let my dragon clan become the strongest clan in the prehistoric world. Aoling simply proposed a way to make the dragon clan in later generations notorious. Aoshan listened to the method proposed by Aoling, and after a little thought, he summed up a sentence: dragon nature is lustful. Dividing line with the dragon clan expansion plan proposed by Aoling, Aoshan accepted it with pleasure after thinking about it. After all, there is no moral concept in the prehistoric world at this time. The mating between creatures is just sparse and common in Aoshan's eyes, and it just expanded the time of this mating from a certain time period to any time and anywhere. If you want the blood gene of the dragon clan to spread to the entire prehistoric world, you naturally need male creatures that can spread dragon blood. Aoshan and Aoling will naturally not act as stallions and mate with females in the entire prehistoric world. Therefore, creating a batch of seeders that spread the blood of the dragon clan naturally became Aoshan's top priority. After a painstaking transformation, Aoshan and Aoling transformed an unknown marine biological group in the ocean into a seeder for the dragon clan. This kind of marine creature that serves as a seed drill for the dragon race was made by Aoshan with great effort. During this period, the spiritual energy consumed by Aoshan was enough for Aoshan to create dozens of low-level dragons in the Giandan realm. In the boundless deep sea, Aoshan and Aoling, two dragons, watched with their own eyes these marine creatures that were used as seed drills. They quickly dissipated in front of him. At this time, Aoshan's heart was full of joy. After all, the growth of the dragon race was right in front of him. How could Aoshan not be happy? Of course, Aoshan was happy, but the other female creatures in the ocean were completely in trouble. Seeders are creatures that are born for reproduction and die for reproduction. They spend their entire lives in reproduction. When the dragon genes carried in their bodies completely disappear, the seed drills will automatically die. It can be said that the mission of the seed drill is to strengthen the bloodline of the dragon race. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Destiny. Looking at the leaving seed drill clan, Aoling originally thought that he should be sad. After all, their experiences are very similar to his own experiences. They are all people sitting at home, and disasters come from the sky. Obviously, they have done nothing, but they are going to suffer a catastrophe. However, at this time, Aoling found that there was no fluctuation in his heart, not even a trace of pity. Have I changed? No, I haven't changed. The strong will always be strong. This is the truth. Aoling wanted to ask his heart to determine whether he was right or wrong, and then find his former self again. But the domineering power from the dragon blood turned Aoling's cowardly heart. In fact, from the moment Aoling chose to accept Aoshan's dragon blood, Aoling was already very different from his former self. Of course, this is not that Aoshan distorted Aoling's will through the power of the Yuan Shen. Although Aoshan can do it, Aoshan will never do it. Aoshan has a special feeling for Aoling. Aoling is the first intelligent creature that Aoshan has met, and also the first younger brother to follow him. For various reasons, it is difficult for Aoshan to hurt Aoling. The reason why Aoling has this phenomenon is ultimately due to the influence of Aoshan and the surrounding environment. The combination of the two has formed Aoling's character at this time. The birth of wisdom is based on soul particles and is a special existence fueled by historical information. It is not perfect by nature. Every intelligent creature needs to understand the world and accept the teachings of its predecessors before it can form its own three views. Just like a child, every intelligent life will accept the teachings from parents and society in the process of perfection. The cross-infection of various information is the main condition for the birth of wisdom. In the prehistoric world, Aoling's wisdom perfection process is extremely cruel for intelligent life living in a peaceful era. It has just been born, so naturally it has taught it a lesson in person. Taught it a truth: the strong prey on the weak. After accepting the dragon blood from Aoshan's attitude towards other lives taught him another lesson, and thus taught Aoling another truth: the strong will always be strong. The cross-infection of information from the environment and the elders constituted Aoling's indifferent attitude towards the weak at this time. After thinking a lot, Aoling could only shake his head helplessly and said to himself in his heart, whether I have changed or not, I still have to do what I should do. Immediately, Aoling threw all kinds of complicated thoughts behind his head. If Li Hao saw Aoling in this state, Li Hao would sigh deeply, thinking too much series. Then Li Hao would give Aoling a great fortune without hesitation. At this time, Aoling's state is like a programmer who is idle in the office. Because he has no work worries for the time being, he began to think about life. If his boss saw this, he would definitely assign him a lot of tasks to forcibly interrupt this thinking process. What kind of life is a little programmer thinking about? Once you think about life, don't you find that I'm exploiting you? Once you find that I'm exploiting you, don't you think about resigning? How can I assign you tasks once you resign? How can I improve the company's efficiency? Combining all these reasons, we can come to a conclusion. A boss who can make programmers think about life is not a good capitalist. But unfortunately, Li Hao didn't have the time to deal with Aoling, a small figure. I don't know whether to say this is sad or lucky. Anyway, after Aoling threw away his troubles, he quickly discovered a problem, that is, the hierarchy of the dragon clan in the future. As a race with blood as the hub of inheritance, the hierarchy system is always inevitable. The hierarchy system can not only ensure that one's power and status are not violated, but also ensure that one is in the position of the beneficiary of the rules from beginning to end. What can be guaranteed even more is the purity of the dragon bloodline. In a race where pure blood represents strength, the purity of bloodline is an inevitable topic. Although there may be examples of hybridization giving birth to stronger individuals, this is only a special case. Thinking of this, Aoling said to Aoshan, who was in an excited state, "Brother, how are you going to arrange the situation of the entire dragon clan in the future?" Aoling's words pulled Aoshan back to reality from the excitement of the dragon clan's growth. Due to the resonance between the souls and the dragon blood connection between Aoshan and Aoling. When Aoling reminded him, Aoshan already knew what Aoling was going to say. A pair of huge dragon claws gently stroked Aoshan's own dragon whiskers. Aoshan quickly operated his soul and thought about the future hierarchy of the dragon clan. It must be said that it is a sad thing to not have a long history. At this time, Aoshan wanted to think of a way, and he had to think about it now. Without the experience of his predecessors as a reference, Aoshan's every move was unpredictable. As for the hierarchy, let's divide it by strength. The Jindan realm is for the lower dragons, the Yuanshan realm is for the higher dragons, and the Mahayana realm is for the Dragon King. No mistake. As for the dragon descendants below the Jindan realm, they are not included in the ranks of the dragon clan. Aoshan thought for most of the day, and in the end he could only come up with such a simple hierarchy. And this hierarchy seems to be divided by strength, but in the end, it is still divided based on blood. The descendants born by the higher dragon clan must be in the Jindan realm, and there is a great possibility of being promoted to the Yuanshan realm. The descendants born by the lower dragon clan are almost born weaker than the descendants of the higher dragon clan. And the balance between the two is that it is very difficult for the higher dragon clan to give birth, while it is very easy for the lower dragon clan to give birth. Only in this way can the power of the lower dragon clan and the overall dragon society be guaranteed. As Aoshan set the future hierarchy of the dragon clan, the luck of the dragon clan began to play a role. At the beginning, Aoshan relied on the authority granted by Lihao to suppress the entire prehistoric world for a short time, thereby plundering a large amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy authority. Although these heaven and earth spiritual energy continue to dissipate with the passage of time, the remaining heaven and earth spiritual energy can still support the rise of the Dragon Clan. In Lihao's rules, the so-called luck is the right to distribute heaven and earth spiritual energy. Powerful races are allocated a huge amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy authority, and the right to use this heaven and earth spiritual energy will be distributed according to the hierarchy of each race. This also formed the luck of the major races. The Dragon Clan has obtained a large amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy authority, which is plundered from other races. So in the process of the Dragon Clan's rise, all races can't compete with the Dragon Clan unless they break the rules of the Dragon Clan and plunder their own heaven and earth spiritual energy authority again. Thanks to the 500 starting coins reward from Zushin Chapter 43 Surveying the Sky. When the dragons in the deep sea began to expand, the sky race led by King Jinpeng flew through the sky domain with great fanfare. A black flock of birds covered the sky and moved towards the sea, and the majestic Yuanshan pressure suppressed all the life forms that dared to look up at the sky palace. Wherever King Jinpeng's sky palace passed, there was a scene of worship everywhere. This era belongs to the sky race. Even if the sky race was once humiliated by the pressure of Aoshan, when he was promoted to Mahayana, it could not shake the sky race's ruling power over the prehistoric star. The control of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth plundered by Kanglan Aoshan only created a momentum for the rise of the dragon race in the future, which could not forcibly change the ruling position of the sky race. This is just like the human beings on earth know that socialism is the future development trend, but you can't deny the power of capitalism at this stage. In this era, if the dragon race wants to truly obtain the ruling right of the prehistoric star, it must defeat the entire sky race on the front battlefield. In the Sky Palace, the Golden Peking and the Yuanshan realm masters of the Golden Winged Dapan clan stood together on the branches of the Thunderwood, looking down at the land races in the lower world, who were prostrating themselves as the clouds that lifted the Sky Palace passed overhead. A proud look flashed in the eyes of these Yuanshan realm masters. They had reason to be proud. In this era when all kinds of creatures competed for freedom in the frost sky, they firmly occupied the best resources of the entire Han-Huang star, and possessed the largest force in the entire Han-Huang star. All of this gave the Golden Winged Dapan clan the capital to be proud. Boom. 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 Bursts of muffled thunder-like sounds rang around the Sky Palace, and the sound of thunder collision spread to the entire Han-Huang with the flow of air. Wherever the sound of thunder reaches, that is where the domain of the sky race descends. Looking at the sea, so close at hand, King Jinpeng let out a cry that echoed in the sky. The patrol mission is over. Such a mighty parade is enough to shock other races in the prehistoric world. Now, listen to my orders and follow the guidance of the swift wind. Move forward at full speed towards the center of the ocean, and make sure to completely wipe out the ocean debris. King Jinpeng's words were transmitted to the ears of all the birds in the entire sky domain in a moment with the help of King Jinpeng's Yuanshan. With King Jinpeng's order, with Thunderwood as the core, Yuanshan bird as the branches, Jindan bird as the flesh and blood, and ordinary birds as feathers. Using Yuanshan to connect the souls of the entire sky race, in an instant, a huge Jinpeng bird appeared in the sky. A powerful and prison-like pressure emerged from the body of the Jinpeng bird, gathering the will and energy of all the birds in the entire sky race. At this time, King Jinpeng had the strength of the Mahayana realm in a short period of time, although this sudden increase in strength was very unstable. But King Jinpeng understood that only the power of the Mahayana realm could break through the defense of the Mahayana realm. Without the attack power of the Mahayana realm, he would rashly go to find Kanglan Aoshan. That is not revenge. That is courting death. With the gathering of the will and power of the entire sky race, a huge golden rock phantom of hundreds of kilometers in size emerged in the sky. Looking up from the ground, it was like a continent covering the sky and the sun stretching across the sky. It blocked the light and brought darkness. It deprived the temperature and brought cold. It took away the vitality and brought death. Once, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was a gift from heaven for the creatures on land. He gave the creatures on land a strong physique, He gave the creatures on land profound wisdom. He gave the creatures on land a better living environment. However, now, with the appearance of the phantom of Xianpeng, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, which was regarded as a gift from heaven by the land race, showed its cruel side. As the shadow of Xianpeng continued to solidify, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth between heaven and earth poured into Xianpeng's divine body like a young swallow returning to its nest. The large amount of spiritual energy of heaven and earth caused the changes in the material particles on the land. Mountains began to collapse, and rivers began to dry up. These collapsed peaks and dried rivers turned into the most primitive material particles under the effect of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Then, under the effect of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, they began to cast the divine body of Xianpeng in the sky, so that King Jinpeng could control the powerful force of the Mahayana realm. Once, Kanglong Aoshan used the luck of the entire Han star to cast the body of Kanglong, and then suppressed the entire Han world, forcing all beasts to surrender, and plundering the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that belonged to them, thus creating the trend of the rise of the Dragon Clan in the future. Now, King Jinpeng cast the body of Xianpeng with the sky and the land, although it is not as powerful as the Kanglong body cast by Kanglong Aoshan with his own soul and the authority of heaven and earth. But the body of Xianpeng is a power of the Mahayana realm after all. Although it cannot be compared with the body of Kanglong, it is not a problem to plunder the spiritual power of the world of land creatures. So, after Kanglong Aoshan plundered part of the spiritual power of the world and the entire prehistoric world, King Jinpeng plundered the prehistoric world again. Although King Jinpeng could not harvest the ocean, because of Kanglong Aoshan, he was unceremoniously skinned by the weakest pole of the three poles of the prehistoric world, the land. King Jinpeng used the luck plundered from the land to replenish the luck of the sky race, thus gaining the motivation to go to war with the ocean. However, the land, which had been exploited twice, was already weak at this time. There were no clouds in the sky. There was no water in the river. There was a lack of forests on the surface of the earth. A doomsday scene appeared in the eyes of the sky race, but facing this doomsday disaster, that would cause turmoil on the entire land in the future, King Jinpeng and even the entire sky race were not moved at all. After they finished casting the body of Xianpeng, they followed the guidance of Zunfeng and headed towards the traces left by Kanglong Aoshan. The violent tornado took shape on the land as Xianpeng's wings flapped, and the great power of nature was shaken by Xianpeng's will. In a blink of an eye, Xianpeng disappeared on the land and appeared in the sea. As for the mess left by King Jinpeng's casting of Xianpeng's body, no creature was there to clean it up. No mistake, one sentence, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar. After being forced to plunder the luck of the land twice, there was no resource to support the birth of Yuanshan realm masters at this time. The Yuanshan realm masters born before the luck of the land was plundered had already been scared by the power of Kanglong and King Jinpeng, and did not dare to move in the open. The massive amount of information collected by the Yuanshan from the heaven and earth made it difficult for these land Yuanshan realm masters to protect themselves, let alone save other creatures. The soul is a signal receiving device. It is very sensitive, so sensitive that it can understand what happened to an object before by touching it. And now, the pressure left by the two Mahayana masters Kanglong and Jinpeng Wang permeates the world. Without a strong enough will, it is difficult to get rid of this terrible idea that is fatal. In other words, these guys' Taoism is on the verge of collapse. It is difficult to save themselves, let alone save others. Now it is on the first recommendation. The result is related to the future of this book. I hope all book friends will support it. Chapter 44, The Body of the Sky Rock. The formation of the Xianpeng body plundered nearly half of the luck of the creatures on land. Coupled with the plunder of the formation of the Kanglong body, under the double plunder, if there is no accident, the creatures on land will completely fail in this battle for the position of wisdom enlightenment. The future ruling center will be born in the sky and the ocean. In the land world, the tornado generated by the flapping of Xianpeng's wings raged on the land, bringing destruction and death. The turbulent energy destroyed the mountains, set off dust storms, stirred up the wind and clouds of heaven and earth, and the violent hurricanes raised endless dust and uprooted the trees on land. Because of the successful casting of the Xianpeng body, the land lost a large number of material particles. The loss of these material particles is like the foundation of a house being destroyed. In the gaps, where these material particles are missing, the stretching caused by the gravity of the planet is reshaping a new order. The shaping of this order is in the world of microscopic particles. Originally, this shaping would not affect the material level, but the lack of material particles is too serious. This also caused the formation of various natural disasters, land desertification, large-scale drying of rivers, and the beginning of irregular seasons. The huge energy contained in the earth veins began to break out of the blockade of the ground, and appeared directly on the surface of the earth. Boom. A shocking vibration resounded through the clouds, and the largest volcanic group in the south of the land began to erupt on a large scale. The energy from the earth veins unscrupulously vented its resentment that had been suppressed for tens of thousands of years. The majestic volcanic ash rushed into the sky with the eruption of the volcanic group. The sun's light was completely covered, and the dark era officially descended on the land world. In the sky above the ocean, King Jinping, who created all these disasters, did not pay any attention to the miserable situation on land. For King Jinping, who abides by the law of the jungle, the weak will always die, and only the living are the strong. The great power of the Mahayana realm stirred up the turbulence in the sky, and the endless thunder clouds followed Xianpeng like the law frame of Xianpeng, spreading Xianpeng's influence far away. The reason why King Jinping did this was naturally not to show off. For the battle of the Mahayana realm, it is a stupid thing to fight only by relying on the energy carried by oneself, even if the body of Xianpeng at this time is hundreds of kilometers in size, almost like a small island. But the energy carried on this small island is still not worth mentioning compared with the entire Han Huang star. The way of fighting of the Mahayana realm strongman is usually to use the Mahayana divine body as a core, so as to pry all the energy within the range of their own soul. This energy level is terrifying. Once it bursts out, it has a powerful penetrating power that penetrates almost everything. Xianpeng's wings are soaring in the sky. King Jinping becomes the brain of Xianpeng through the special connection between the soul masters of the Golden Winged Dapan clan, and dominates the direction of Xianpeng's movement. The souls of those Yuanshan realm masters are equivalent to Xianpeng's nervous system, transmitting the information conveyed by King Jinping, so as to transmit King Jinping's orders to every corner of Xianpeng's body. Under such layer by layer transmission, King Jinping temporarily obtained the powerful combat power of the Mahayana realm. Following the track left by the Skywing bird Swiftwind, King Jinping controlled the Skywing bird's body to quickly shuttle through the clouds in the sky. The Skywing bird is a bird that specializes in speed among the sky races. When the Skywing bird is flying at full speed, even King Jinping, who has turned into the Skywing bird's body, cannot catch up. Therefore, King Jinping can only reach the traces left by the Blue Dragon A Ocean according to the traces left by the Skywing bird. Time passed quickly. When King Jinping arrived at the traces left by the Blue Dragon A Ocean, more than a month had passed. Skywing bird Swiftwind looked at the Skywing bird's body that came with the thundercloud storm, and a trace of envy appeared in his eyes. It also wanted to have such a powerful body, and then soar in the sky and enjoy the fun of freedom. As the Skywing bird's body gradually approached the traces of the Blue Dragon A Ocean, Swiftwind turned into a stream of light and entered the body of the Skywing bird's body. The Skywing bird also plays an important role in the Skywing bird's body as the ultimate divine body created by the combination of the entire sky race. With the addition of the Skywing bird Swiftwind, it is obvious that the flying speed of the Skypeng body has increased by more than one level. However, the price paid by the Skywing bird is that its thinking will be temporarily controlled by the strong man in the Yuanshan realm, so as to ensure the powerful combat effectiveness of the Skypeng body. King Jinping controlled the Skypeng body to come to the sea frozen by the ice. Even after several months, the natural landscape created by the strong man in the Mahayana realm showed no signs of disappearing. Feeling the breath of Kanglang A Ocean emanating from the ice, the Skypeng body controlled by King Jinping suddenly burst out a powerful energy shockwave. The scattered majestic energy hit the surrounding air, rolling up waves of ocean waves, causing countless clouds to shatter. Ocean scum, I finally found your trace. King Jinping's voice contained deep hatred. When Kanglang was born, the powerful force crushed all the creatures in the prehistoric world, destroyed the inner will of the creatures, and even almost completely defeated the rule of the sky race. If King Jinpeng had not decisively chosen to cast the Thunderwood, and thus centralize the power of the entire sky race, I'm afraid that at that time, the rule of the sky race would have collapsed. Dead Loach, you will be buried in the ocean today, and you should feel honored to be buried with the entire ocean race. Like the declaration of the gods, King Jinpeng's voice spread along the energy of the Xianpeng body and spread to the entire ocean, and the heavy echo spread everywhere between heaven and earth. A large number of golden feathers fell off from the body of Xianpeng, and scattered towards the ocean. As these golden feathers spread, King Jinpeng's perception quickly spread to the entire sea. For King Jinpeng, each golden feather is equivalent to an energy radar. In the process of the golden feathers spreading, these golden feathers will continue to spread waves of energy fluctuations around. No mistake, one song, one post, one content, one six, one book, one bar, one look. These energy fluctuations will constantly explore the surrounding environment, thus forming pictures, and transmitting them to the yuanshan of many yuanshan realm powerhouses in the body of Xianpeng. After these strong men have analyzed it, they will pass the determined target to the soul of King Jinpeng, and finally launch a powerful attack, to give the enemy a fatal blow. The information belonging to the ocean is being collected quickly. As the golden feather spreads more and more, the information black hole of the entire ocean is getting smaller and smaller. In the end, all the targets are concentrated on a mountain in the deep sea. Thank you Zushi and Dideo for the 500 starting coins reward. Chapter 45 Divine Strike. In the deep sea, a large amount of energy fluctuations converge towards the positions of Kanglang Aocean and Aoling. As the fluctuation range gradually narrowed and was positioned, King Jinpeng finally locked the position of Kanglang. What a terrifying yuanshan. Even though there is a thick sea between us, I can still feel the breath that makes any living being tremble. But, unfortunately, today, you will perish in this world. Prepare to say goodbye to this world. After discovering the trace of Kanglang, King Jinpeng did not greet Kanglang directly, but directly drove the body of Xianpeng straight into the sky, passing through the obstruction of clouds and airflow layers, and appeared on the surface of Honghuang Star. When King Jinpeng drove the body of Xianpeng to an extreme in the sky domain, at the top of the sky domain, the body of Xianpeng began to extend its wings to the extreme under the control of King Jinpeng. The huge wings that are hundreds of kilometers long are like a continent that covers the sky and the sun, blocking the irradiation from the stellar energy. On the back of the Xianpeng body, endless sunlight shines on the feathers of the Xianpeng body. The energy from the stars is absorbed by the golden feathers, thus artificially creating an unobservable black spot. In the deep sea, Kanglang suddenly felt an inexplicable crisis locking on himself. The majestic murderous intent contained in the crisis was like a blade on the neck, which made people feel cold. The warning of this crisis comes from the turbulence and convergence of the spiritual energy between heaven and earth. For the Mahayana realm powerhouses, as long as there is no interference from another Mahayana realm powerhouse, it can control all the spiritual energy of heaven and earth within the scope of its own soul. Once there are strong people of the same level who gather the spiritual energy of heaven and earth between heaven and earth, the Mahayana realm powerhouses can determine the source of the crisis through the connection between the spiritual energy between heaven and earth. This kind of induction is like the sensitivity of countries to the flow of funds. When someone starts to gather a large amount of funds, the warning from the national level is enough to alarm any ruling leadership. Unless the country is paralyzed, it is equivalent to the yuanshan of the Mahayana realm powerhouse being deceived. Otherwise, it is almost difficult to hide the attacks of the same level from the Mahayana realm powerhouse. But whether it can be hidden is one thing, and whether it can be stopped is another. King Jinpeng deliberately manipulated Xianpeng to rise to an extreme position. At this time, even if Kanglang noticed the source of the crisis, it would be difficult to stop King Jinpeng from launching the attack. Endless energy gathered on the feathers of Xianpeng's body, thus stimulating the brilliant light of destruction. Every feather on the body of Xianpeng is equivalent to an ordinary bird, and the energy gathered by hundreds of billions of ordinary birds in the entire sky races, so huge that this huge energy gathering even attracted some of the god particles hovering in space to join. In the gathering of a large amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy and God particles, endless light burst out from the body of Xianpeng, like a small sun, shining on one side of the prehistoric star. At this time, the majestic energy gathered by the body of Xianpeng has replaced the starlight in the sky and become the second sun of the prehistoric star. When the Xianpeng body gathered energy, in the microscopic particle world, the atomic structure composed of material particles began to fission. A large number of atomic structures burst under the impact of powerful energy, thus releasing even more huge energy fluctuations, which affected the entire sky. Like a spell from a god, as a mysterious voice sounded in the sky, a huge energy ball of light took shape in front of the Xianpeng body, and then compressed, enlarged, compressed, enlarged, and compressed. After 10 times, a dark ball of light with a diameter of about 10 meters took shape in front of the Xianpeng body. Say goodbye to this world. God strike. The dark light of destruction slowly broke away from the control of the Xianpeng body and began to fall towards the ocean bit by bit. From the perspective of the living beings, the speed of the light of destruction was very slow, like a snail. From the actual spatial distance, the speed of the light of destruction was so fast that it was terrifying. In almost a blink of an eye, the light of destruction descended on the surface of the sea and made close contact with the sea water. During the advent of the light of destruction, all the material particles between the ocean and the light of destruction were cleared by the powerful energy pressure. In this universe, the basis of all existence is composed of material particles, even space. When the material particles were cleared, it symbolized that the distance between the light of destruction and the surface of the ocean was abruptly erased, thus realizing the cross-space attack state of the light of destruction. This also made Kanglang Aoshan unable to dodge at all, and he could only resist. As the light of destruction came into contact with the ocean, the energy of atomic fission contained in the light of destruction destroyed Kanglang's soul sensing ability in an instant, thus turning Kanglang Aoshan into a blind man. The 10-meter sized light of destruction began to shrink extremely the moment it touched the surface of the ocean. When it shrunk to an extreme, it began to expand again. Endless light spread around, and the breath of destruction infected all creatures in the entire ocean. Although the energy of the light of destruction could not attack other marine races hidden in the depths of the ocean from the material level, but the breath fluctuations of the light of destruction alone can destroy the souls of a large number of marine creatures, shatter their already condensed souls, and spread throughout the sea. Compared to the luck of other marine creatures, Aoshan was not so lucky. As the target of the light of destruction, the powerful penetrating power of the light of destruction directly penetrated the barrier of the ocean and attacked the deep sea. The extremely powerful light of destruction penetrated the barrier of the ocean and attacked the body of Kanglang Aoshan. The golden dragon blood dripped into the ocean, dyeing the dark deep sea into a golden color. As the divine body of a powerful Mahayana realm master, every drop of Aoshan's blood contains extremely huge energy, which is enough to change the structure of the substance itself, thus causing incredible changes. As the light of destruction penetrated Aoshan's divine body, a painful dragon roar sounded in the deep sea. Aoshan grabbed Aoling and swallowed it into his stomach to protect it. Then it turned into hundreds of kilometers of Tangshan Shenlong and flew towards the sky. And in the mountains where Aoshanlong's blood dripped, 4 hazy wills were slowly emerging, using the seabed spiritual veins as their bodies and Aoshanlong's blood as their enlightened wills, thus giving birth to 4 seabed dragons that depended on Aoshan's thinking. Chapter 46. Shocking Battle. Roar. The dragon roared like thunder from the bottom of the endless sea to the sky. The airwaves formed by the sound waves were like layers of air barriers, vibrated by the powerful sound waves, and forcibly squeezed towards Xianpeng soaring in the sky. Layers of air barriers were like folds in space, and finally formed 100 meters in front of Xianpeng. For Xianpeng's huge body, a distance of 100 meters is almost within reach. However, looking at these layers of air barriers appearing in front of him, Xianpeng's sharp eyes flashed a trace of doubt. It didn't understand why Kanglang Aoshan's attack stopped in front of him instead of launching a fatal attack directly. At this time, Xianpeng was in the stiff period after the launch of the divine attack. Once Kanglang's attack was effective, then Xianpeng, even if he didn't die, would be fatally injured, and thus forced to release this state of fusion, and eventually lose the powerful strength of the Mahayana realm. But it is obvious that at this time, King Jinping forgot how powerful the divine attack launched by the entire sky race was. In the face of such a powerful offensive that was enough to penetrate the deep sea, Kanglang Aoshan first thought of how to save his life, rather than looking for an opportunity to counterattack. Therefore, the air barrier squeezed by the dragon's roar with all his strength was just a defensive means to prevent Xianpeng from quickly descending from the sky and giving it a fatal blow. However, adhering to the idea that the best defense is attack, although Kanglang set up an air barrier to block Xianpeng's descent in order to save his life, this does not mean that the air barrier has no offensive power at all. Collapse. A sound like a broken string appeared in front of Xianpeng. Suddenly, a fatal crisis from Xianpeng's whole body gathered crazily towards King Jinpeng's soul. The fear of death from the entire sky race was madly oppressing King Jinpeng's soul. Once King Jinpeng could not bear this huge fear information, the retaliatory attack of the sky race would end in complete failure. The price of forcibly accepting the power of the Mahayana realm with the realm of the Yuanshen realm is that one's own Yuanshen forcibly bears the information pressure from the entire Xianpeng body. Whoosh! The sound of the whistling wind suddenly broke out from the air barrier, and the sound wave attack formed by the pressure of the powerful force rushed towards the Xianpeng body. Because the entire sky race was in a state of fusion at this time, the King Jinpeng, as the core of the Xianpeng body, forcibly took on this attack that was enough to completely shatter the King Jinpeng's Yuanshen with his own strength. Puff. Under the impact of this terrifying storm, the body of the Xianpeng body, the body of the King Jinpeng suddenly spurted out a lot of scarlet blood. In the corners of the King Jinpeng's eyes, strands of scarlet blood flowed from his eyes. At this time, the King Jinpeng looked very hideous and terrifying, like a devil from hell. My king, how are you? Concerned voices were transmitted from the Yuanshen of other golden winged dapping on the thunderwood to the Yuanshen of King Jinpeng. However, facing the concern of his subordinates, King Jinpeng did not react at all. It just roared sharply and ferociously again. God's strike is launched. The powerful Yuanshen command was like an irresistible divine decree, commanding the actions of the entire sky race. At the cost of stiffening again, energy once again gathered on the body of Xianpeng. The dull feathers, that were originally exhausted due to energy, began to shine again under the charging of a large amount of energy. The terrifying oppressive force was transmitted to the ocean like the gaze of the god of death, and the terrible energy contained in it shook all the space in the sky domain. A large amount of water vapor that was originally evaporated by the divine strike was forced away by the powerful energy focus, and the situation of king against king took shape again. Looking at the huge Xiansheng that was constantly gathering energy in the sky, Kanglang Aoshan cursed fiercely. Damn mixed-haired bird, do you really think I'm easy to mess with? Boom. 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 The endless roar of thunder gathered the majestic wind and clouds to lift up the huge body of Kanglang Aoshan, like a rocket soaring through the sky, circling towards the Xianpeng in the sky. The gathering between the Xianpeng body and the Kanglang body continued to shrink, and the terrifying breath of death permeated between the two. The heavy historical clouds began to take shape in the Yuanshen of King Jinpeng and Aoshan, making the Yuanshen of King Jinpeng and Aoshan grow rapidly. However, it is obvious that in the speed of Yuanshen's growth this time, Aoshan's Yuanshen expansion speed is far less than that of King Jinpeng's Yuanshen. Unlike Aoshan's Yuanshen, which is enough to withstand the pressure of Kanglang's body, King Jinpeng at this time not only bears the fear of death from the entire sky race, but also bears the majestic pressure from Aoshan. The difference between the life level of the Mahayana realm and the life level of the Yuanshen realm is like the difference between humans and ants. As the saying goes, there is great terror between life and death. King Jinpeng endured the terrible pressure shock from multiple levels, but still did not collapse his Yuanshen, which was a victory to a certain extent. Coupled with the support of the special factor of soul particles, under the strong pressure, King Jinpeng broke through the boundary between the Yuanshen realm and the Mahayana realm, and directly controlled everything about the Xianpeng body. Feeling this great power that far exceeded everything in the world, King Jinpeng looked at Kanglang Aoshan, who was constantly approaching him, and roared with a ferocious corner of his mouth, "Ocean bastards, it's time to say goodbye." Boom. The divine strike was launched at the moment before Kanglang Aoshan arrived. The extremely huge energy shock wave rushed into the sky like a nuclear bomb explosion of millions of tons. The entire airspace was swept away by this powerful energy shockwave, and the dazzling light of destruction was like a surging river, spreading to the surroundings. A perfect poem, a post, a content, a 629 book, a bar, a look. The powerful energy pressure destroyed countless atomic energies, and the huge energy released from the atoms intensified the process of destruction. In the end, in the despair of Kanglang Aoshan and the ferocious face of King Jinpeng, the world was eclipsed, the 9 heavens were turbulent, and the terrifying spiritual turbulence of the world almost overturned the entire sky. From the perspective of space, the atmosphere on one side of the Hangliang star was almost completely emptied, and the radiation energy from the stars directly shone on the surface of the Hangliang star, creating a feast of destruction. After the energy shock wave was slowly repaired by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, Kanglang Aoshan and King Jinpeng temporarily stopped fighting with both sides injured. In the deep sea, Aoshan, whose body was broken into several pieces, was lingering, and at the other end of the sky, King Jinpeng was bearing the mental backlash caused by the entire sky race, because of the forced launch of the second divine attack. The pain like thousands of ants biting the body was raging in King Jinpeng's soul. Chapter 47 Bloody Dragon Clan. As the leader of the Skypeng body, King Jinpeng enjoys the right to control the power of the Mahayana realm in advance. At the same time, he also bears the pain of using his own soul to transmit the entire sky race. Every time he launches an attack, every time he endures an attack, all the hardships he suffers are directed at King Jinpeng. The advantage of doing this is that King Jinpeng's soul realm can be quickly improved, but the consequence is that one careless death is the price of the soul nourishing all things. From Li Hao's point of view, the more lives on the prehistoric star, the better, but judging from the future value, it is obvious that the prehistoric beings created by the soul of a strong man are obviously more than those created by a weak man. So in this battle between Aoshan and King Jinpeng, Li Hao, who is far above the Yuanshi star, chose to watch. Otherwise, with such a huge battle energy fluctuation between the two, if Li Hao still can't find it, then it's really over. The huge body of Xianpeng disintegrated because of King Jinpeng's pain. Hundreds of billions of sky races gathered around King Jinpeng like dense dark clouds, waiting for King Jinpeng's order. At this time, King Jinpeng endured the pain and torture in his soul, and fiercely ordered the entire sky race through his teeth. Find them for me. Even if you have to search all the mountains and rivers, overturn the earth, pour the 4 seas, find them for me. As King Jinpeng's order was issued, the entire sky race was like a wave that dissipated, searching the entire Hangliang star, while the sky race was chasing Kanglang Aoshan with great fanfare. At this time in the deep sea, Kanglang Aoshan was struggling to use his soul to control the water flow in the ocean, cooperating with Aoling to move his body bit by bit. Aoshan's body was broken into 3 pieces due to the powerful energy impact of the divine attack. After losing the restriction of Aoshan's soul, these 3 pieces of body turned into 3 extremely huge mountains, standing in the ocean. At this time, Aoling was trying his best to use his tortoise shell to hold up Aoshan's tail body, so that he could move slowly towards Aoshan's head body step by step. What a powerful divine object is the physical body of Mahayana realm strongman. As a unique blue dragon body, every inch of its dragon scales weighs tens of millions of tons. It is a bit difficult for Aoling to move a huge mountain composed of dragon bodies. Aoling struggled to transport Aoshan's divine body, step by step, approaching Aoshan's head. The heavy pressure almost completely crushed Aoling. If it weren't for the weak soul left by Aoshan to help, Aoling at this time would have been like Sun Wukong under the 5-finger mountain, and he would never be able to turn over. After much hard work, the Aoling race transported Aoshan's tail body to the vicinity of Aoshan's head body, with the power of the souls in the 2 bodies added together. Aoshan finally had the ability to recover quickly, almost at a speed visible to the naked eye. Aoshan's body, which had turned into a mountain, recovered quickly. At the same time, Aoshan's stronger soul power pulled the nearby torso body little by little. In the end, after almost exhausting all the energy of the soul, Aoshan finally recovered. In the endless deep sea, Aoshan slowly swam his body, letting it drift in the ocean, looking for a way to restore his soul energy. At this time, Aoshan's eyelids were fighting all the time, and the huge consumption of soul energy made Aoshan very sleepy at this time. But Aoshan didn't dare to really fall asleep, because once Aoshan fell asleep at this time, it was very likely to be a permanent sleep. Time passed bit by bit, and Aoshan kept looking for ways to quickly restore his soul, while trying his best to ensure that he did not fall into a deep sleep. In the end, the seed drill that Aoshan had left behind became Aoshan's life-saving means. At this time, the seed drill had already completed its mission and disappeared from then on. As their mission items, in those mother bodies that were nurtured by the dragon bloodline, they left the seeds of the dragon's growth. Aoshan sensed the mother bodies nurtured by the dragon bloodline nearby with his remaining soul energy, and ordered Aoling, "Let the dragons be born quickly, I can't hold on any longer." Listening to Aoshan's orders, Aoling's dragon eyebrows frowned, and then stretched out again. Aoling said to the mother bodies carrying the dragon bloodline with a little bitterness, "I'm sorry, your lives are about to end." As he said that, Aoling's soul began to cover the mother bodies nurtured by the dragon bloodline. The blood from the higher dragons was like a poppy flower, attracting the dragon seeds nurtured by the dragon bloodline. After a while, the dragon seeds in the mother body began to grow bloodily by absorbing the mother's energy. Countless hideous screams of pain sounded in the ocean. Sadness, pain, resentment, and all kinds of negative emotional forces spread from the will of life. And all these negative emotional forces were instilled into the dragon eggs that were bred by the mother body. Looking at the dragon eggs that were bred one by one, and the mother body that died after all the vitality was absorbed by the dragon eggs, Aoshan's turbid eyes flashed a gleam of light. For Aoshan, non-dragon life forms have no value in its eyes. It is their honor to sacrifice for the growth of the dragon clan. The birth of a large number of dragon eggs has allowed the power of luck that permeates the dragon race to begin to play a role. A certain kind of rule and order power in the dark began to act on Aoshan's soul, thereby repairing Aoshan's soul injury and replenishing Aoshan's lost soul energy. As the maker of the dragon clan's rules, the stronger the dragon clan is, the more sufficient the power of luck Aoshan can obtain, and the more stable the spiritual energy of heaven and earth it receives. The birth of each dragon egg means the disappearance of other races, and the part of the luck that disappears is also plundered by the dragon egg, thus becoming the foundation for the growth of the dragon race. No mistake, one sentence, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar. This trend of change cannot be changed by anyone's will, and even Lee Heo cannot change this trend. The powerful must plunder, but some of these plundering methods are brutal and some are gentle. Feeling that his soul has a tendency to recover, Aoshan's cold voice rang in Aoling's ears. Continue. The indifferent voice was like a purgatory in the cold winter, which made Aoling shudder unconsciously. At this time, a trace of blood red gradually emerged from the edge of Aoshan's blue pupils, and this trace of blood red added a touch of evil to the originally mighty and domineering Aoshan. I didn't expect that this way of breeding dragon eggs would have such a big impact on my brother. No, I must change this breeding method. Thank you for the 1000 starting coins reward from ZHU Shine DDO. Chapter 48 Dragon Clan. Although Aoling wanted to change the bloody breeding method of the dragon race, Aoling's men were not soft-hearted at all, and continued to use the bloody dragon breeding method. At this time, Aoshan and Aoling were still escaping for their lives. Before getting rid of the life and death crisis, it would be foolish to rashly stop the only powerful method. At least before Aoling came up with a solution, Aoling would not stop the bloody birth process of the dragon race. Under Aoshan's command, the seeder did not know how many times the dragon seeds were sown in the entire deep sea. Anyway, in Aoshan's perception, there was a batch of dragon seeds in almost every section of the sea. So, in the process of marine life dying all the way, countless dragon eggs were bred by depriving the mother of her life. The birth of a large number of dragon eggs made the luck of the dragon race begin to rise steadily. This kind of luck belonging to the race is different from the luck of the sky race. The luck of the sky race is divided, and not a whole. Although the entire sky race is subject to the rule of King Jinpeng, it is because of the powerful strength of King Jinpeng. Once King Jinpeng loses his powerful strength at this time, the centralized system of the sky race will collapse in an instant, and it will be difficult to form again. The dragon race is different. At this time, the dragon race is respected by blood. As the most powerful blood in the entire dragon race, Aoshin undoubtedly occupies the most important position. However, even if Aoshin dies, the dragon race will gather together again, because of the power of blood, and build a powerful dragon society. As more and more dragon eggs appear, Aoshin's soul recovery speed is getting faster and faster. However, the infinite power of injustice carried in the dragon eggs is also lingering around Aoshin's soul, thus confusing Aoshin's soul's clarity, making Aoshin in a state of irritability at this time. While the luck of the race can help the rule maker to become stronger, it also affects the rule maker. Normally, the rule maker of a race is in an absolutely neutral position. When it fights for the interests of the race, it will not let the interests of the race override its own will. But it is obvious that Aoshin is in an abnormal state at this time. When Aoshin, whose soul is extremely weak, accepts the power of the race's luck, he is also affected by the race's luck, thus changing his will. At the same time, Aoshin's will is also influencing the young dragon in the dragon egg in reverse. Under this dual influence, the interests of the dragon race and Aoshin temporarily reach an agreement. That is to eliminate the sky race, so that the dragon race can become the only overlord between heaven and earth. In space, above the Yuanshi stars, in the temple of the gods, Lee Heo looked down at the sky monitoring mirror in the center of the temple of the gods. Through the sky monitoring mirror, everything on the prehistoric star is recorded in real time, so that he can adjust the strategy of the prehistoric star at any time. In order to avoid that, he has to observe everything on the prehistoric star through the god particles from time to time. With the abnormal movement of the spiritual energy of the prehistoric star, Lee Heo once again focused his attention on Aoshin. At this time, Lee Heo stroked his chin and looked at Aoshin, who was in an abnormal state. "Why is it you again? Are you really destined to be born?" Lee Heo was very curious about Aoshin at this time. As the fuse for the enlightenment of the wisdom of the prehistoric star, Aoshin's previous actions accelerated the birth of the wisdom of the prehistoric star. And now, when Lee Heo was taking the next step in the process of the rise of the race, Aoshin appeared in front of him again, which made Lee Heo feel surprised by Aoshin. It even made Lee Heo have the illusion that Aoshin was the protagonist of heaven and earth. However, in a blink of an eye, Lee Heo threw this idea behind his mind, because for Lee Heo, the more protagonists of heaven and earth, the better. The more protagonists of heaven and earth, the smoother the process of nurturing Lee Heo's prehistoric civilization will be. With Aoshin appearing in front of Lee Heo again, Lee Heo was too lazy to choose other talents, and he put the burden of the rise of the race on Aoshin's shoulders. After the prehistoric creatures were oppressed by powerful existence, wisdom was born quickly, and the evolution of the historical line of prehistoric civilization was accelerated. The next step is to forge the rise of the race, so that the breeding of intelligent life will be smoother. Compared with the food chain rules of the free competition of all kinds of frost, Lee Heo still yearns for the order rules of industrialized production. However, Lee Heo wants to distort the food chain rules of Han Huang Star into the rules of order, and the time it will take will be a long time. Looking at Aoshin, who is under the influence of the race's luck at this time, Lee Heo said mysteriously, "The sky is vigorous, and the gentleman is self-reliant. The earth is cun, and the gentleman is virtuous. Only the race that acts according to this standard is a patron of the order rules. As for whether the race that will become the protagonist of heaven and earth in the future is the Dragon Clan, it depends on your performance." Ha ha ha. As Lee Heo watched, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in Han Huang Star began to gather towards the Dragon Clan again. There is a saying on the earth, one step ahead, every step ahead. In the case that there is no mistake in the goal, one step ahead is the difference between heaven and earth. No mistakes in one song, one post, one content, one 6, one 9, one book, one bar, one look. Obviously, as the pioneer of the dragon race, no matter how bloody the dragon race's practices are, the existence of the dragon race at this time is in line with Lee Heo's will. And in line with Lee Heo's will, that is, to understand the will of heaven. Since you have understood the will of heaven, the transfer of luck will naturally become a natural thing. Luck is a general term for the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and the gathering of luck is the transfer of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. In the luck of the race, it is not only the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, it also contains the history experienced by members of a race. At this time, Aoshan, who was in a state of damaged soul, was suffering from the interference of ocean history. Just like Aoshan's promotion to the Mahayana realm was the history of the dark abyss that he endured with his soul. At this time, Aoshan was accepting the history of the birth of the dragon race, but he was different from Aoshan, who once had a strong soul support and a firm self-will. At this time, Aoshan was like, when he was confused in his thinking, he met a pyramid schemer who was proficient in thinking bewitching, and the information that this pyramid schemer sold to Aoshan was the expansion of the dragon race. In the ocean, as various dragons break out of their shells, the expansionist will of the dragons gradually dominates Aoshan's will. The birth of a large number of dragons eventually pushes the dragons on a path of rapid expansion. A race born in blood, coupled with a leader bewitched by the will of the race, this race that is enough to bring a fatal threat to other races on the prehistoric planet. What kind of twists and turns will it bring? Let's wait and see. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Dragonborn Evolution. In the deep sea, the dragonborn that broke out of the dragon egg made its first roar towards this new world. These roars from the dragonborn sounded so sweet to Aoshan, because they were the sounds of the dragon race growing stronger in this world. At this time, the young creatures that broke out of the dragon egg were only the dragonborn in the dragon race hierarchy society stipulated by Aoshan. They were just the soil for the existence of the dragon race. Strictly speaking, these dragonborn were not included in the group of the dragon race. However, these dragonborn were the first creatures born with dragon blood. Aoshan's attitude towards these newborn dragonborn was different from those dragonborn that flooded in the future. No matter what time it was, things were always rare and valuable. This principle was universal everywhere. Aoshan looked at the dragon descendants who had just broken out of their shells with his blue eyes, and then said to Aoling, "It is useless for the dragon race to grow in a short time, just by relying on the dragon descendants. Although these dragon descendants have the blood of the dragon race, the biggest problem is that they have no wisdom." Aoling said softly beside him, "What do you mean, brother? Bring these dragon descendants to the deep sea. Use the spiritual veins on the seabed to accelerate the growth of the dragon descendants, and at the same time, you and I will transmit our insights when we are promoted to the golden core realm to the consciousness of these dragon descendants. In order to ensure that these dragon descendants can become the cornerstone of the expansion of the dragon race at the fastest speed." Aoshan narrated his plan to Aoling in a straightforward manner. "But, in this way, these dragon descendants are just our vassals. Once we lose our perception of a higher level, these dragon descendants are just some reckless men." Aoling said with some concern about Aoshan's plan. The experience of the strong's promotion is transmitted to the weak without reservation, and what it brings is only the vassal made according to the experience of the strong. Once the strong lose their perception of a higher level, the weak who are being transmitted will lose all their potential for development because of being forced to grow. This process is like climbing a mountain. Those who climb the mountain with their own will can find a path that suits them, and they can make corrections to the path at any time based on their experience of climbing the mountain. Those who climb the mountain along the existing mountain road will eventually have no choice but to turn back once they encounter a cliff, because they cannot make targeted corrections to their own path based on their experience. And Aoling's worries also come from this. According to Aoshan's plan, the two dragons will pass on their experience of being promoted to a higher realm to the dragon descendants without reservation through their own souls, teaching these dragon descendants to climb directly to the giant realm hand in hand. The damage caused by this method is fatal to the future of the dragon clan. Regarding Aoling's worries, Aoshan said without any care, "Don't worry, war and death will teach them everything." After saying this, Aoshan directly brought these newly born dragon descendants into the deep sea with the power of blood. Aoshan's recovered powerful yuan shen formed an isolation layer around its body, blocking the huge pressure from the deep sea, preventing these weak dragons from dying directly due to the pressure of the deep sea. Looking at Aoshan, who was desperate for the growth of the dragon clan, Aoling could only sigh helplessly and then followed Aoshan to the deep sea. In the ocean, there are a large number of seabed spiritual veins, which are transformed from spiritual sources into material particles. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the seabed spiritual veins is several times, or even dozens of times, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth on the surface of Hong Huang Star. Aoshan and Aoling, the two dragons, took the newly born dragons and searched for the spiritual pool condensed by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the deep sea canyon. This spiritual liquid condensed by pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth is the best nutrition for the newly born dragons. A large amount of spiritual liquid can help the dragons quickly pass the infancy and grow directly to the level of giant. After a lot of effort, Aoshan threw all the newly born dragons into a huge spiritual pool. The spiritual liquid formed by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth contained in the spiritual pool quickly poured into the bodies of these dragon descendants the moment they entered the spiritual pool. The powerful energy stimulated the dragon blood contained in these dragon descendants, accelerating the proportion of dragon blood in their bodies, thereby pushing these dragon descendants towards the dragon form of the golden core elm. Dragon descendants are a product of the combination of dragon genes and other biological genes. In the body of a dragon descendant, under normal circumstances, the proportion of dragon genes is not very high, because too much dragon blood will increase the difficulty of the birth of a dragon descendant. The more pure-blooded a dragon is born, the greater the energy required. So in order to allow the blood of the dragon clan to spread all over the world, Aoshan took the approach of reducing the proportion of dragon blood in the body of a dragon descendant. After the dragon descendant broke out of the shell, the proportion of dragon blood in the dragon descendant was increased through acquired means, and finally the dragon descendant completed the process of becoming a dragon. Before the dragon descendant completed the transformation into a dragon, their form was no different from that of ordinary marine life. No mistakes, just one post, one content, 1629 book, 1 bar. At this time, the dragon gene is in a recessive state. Only when a large amount of energy stimulates the dragon descendants will the dragon descendants evolve towards the pure-blooded dragon clan. Of course, because Aoshan did not stipulate the specific form of the dragon clan, even if it is a pure-blooded dragon clan, it is possible that there are many different forms. The forms of low-level dragons in the Jindan realm are diverse, and the forms of high-level dragons in the Yuanshan realm will form a fixed state within the dragon clan, thus inheriting the branch bloodline of the dragon clan. As for the Mahayana Dragon King, that is the ultimate direction of the evolution of all dragon clans, so even if Aoshan did not stipulate the specific form of the dragon clan, for the sake of self-strength, most dragon clans will evolve in the direction of Aoshan. After all, not every dragon clan has the courage to open up a new bloodline for the dragon clan. If you don't take the ready-made road, wouldn't that be a fool? The low-level dragon clan in the Jindan realm evolves passively, so there are many different forms. The high-level dragons in the Yuanshan realm can actively evolve, or open up a bloodline of their own, so as to be promoted to the Dragon King in a different way, thus gaining unlimited potential. Or they can evolve in the direction of the existing Dragon King, so as to be promoted to the Mahayana realm smoothly. But from then on, they will be subject to the control of the Dragon King. At this time, the Dragon King is more like a dragon candidate than a Dragon King. Outside the deep sea canyon, Aoshan's blue pupils are watching the Dragonborn who are evolving rapidly at this time, and his eyes are full of excitement about the future prospects of the Dragon Clan. Chapter 50, Dragon of Fear. Dinosaur. Thick scales slowly appeared on the skin of the Dragonborn. The dragon scales were like a natural armor, attached to the body of the Dragonborn, protecting the weak body of the Dragonborn. Sharp claws stretched out from the abdomen of the Dragonborn, like the sharpest blade, and deep cold light flashed on the edge of the claws. The unique cyan dragon pupils appeared in the eyes of the Dragonborn like the eyes of a god, replacing the original eye color of the Dragonborn. A series of changes in the body showed the evolution process of the Dragonborn. Outside the canyon, the huge Aoshan and Aoling were fully developing their own Yuanshan domain. Then they transmitted their experience when they were promoted to the Giant realm to the consciousness of the Dragonborn, so as to preside over the Dragonborn, strengthening the various insights and experiences of the two dragons Aoshin and Aoling. When they were promoted to the Giant realm were passed on to the consciousness of these Dragonborn in the evolutionary state by the two dragons without reservation. This method of forcing growth is like a child facing a difficult problem, and the teacher does not teach the child how to solve the problem. Instead, the teacher directly tells the child the answer, and tells the child that in the future, when encountering such a problem, he does not need to think too much, just add the answer directly. When a child under this kind of teaching faces the same problem, of course, he can quickly solve the answer, although he does not know the specific process of solving the problem. But once the child encounters a different type of the same problem, the child will be instantly at a loss. Just like the difference between 2 plus 3 equals 5 and 1 plus 4 equals 5. At this time, the transmission of experience carried out by the two dragons Aoshin and Aoling is the process of teaching children the problem. The dragon descendants do not have to face the difficulties of promotion. Aoshin and Aoling directly tell the dragon descendants the answer, thus quickly passing through this process. This way of promotion is so fast that it is incredible. 1 year later, all the dragon descendants brought to the spirit pool by Aoshin have completed the process of promotion to the lower dragon clan. Powerful power filled the bodies of the lower dragons. Thick scales wrapped around their bodies. The golden elixir in their bodies slowly attracted the spiritual energy and material particles that permeated the heaven and earth, thereby constantly strengthening the bodies of the lower dragons. Roar, 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 roar. Roaring dragon roars came from the mouths of the lower dragons, and the bear kids were out of the cage. With all the dragon descendants promoted, Aoshin, who had transformed into a human and stood in front of the dragons, said excitedly, "Today is the first step in the growth of my dragon family. One day, I will make the whole world full of dragon blood. Only the dragon family is the greatest race in this world. Only the blood of the dragon family can exist in this world. Now, warriors of the dragon family, follow this king to conquer the ocean and turn the deep sea into the territory of the dragon family." Roar. A dragon roar that shook the deep sea roared out from Aoshin's mouth, and then Aoshin's humanoid body changed rapidly. However, in just a short moment, Aoshin turned into a huge monster of hundreds of kilometers again. Endless ocean currents pushed Aoshin's huge dragon body to swim to other seas, followed by a large number of low-level dragons. After all the dragons disappeared in the ocean, Aoling, who stayed in place, looked at the dragons that were going away, and shook his head and said, "I don't know how many of these children can survive. War and death will teach them everything. This is true, because those who can't learn will all die. So those who survive must be elites. But this way of elimination is too cruel. I can't accept it." Compared with Aoshin, who is obsessed with expanding the dragon clan by force, Aoling yearns for another gentle way of expansion, through communication and exchange, to resolve the contradictions between the two hostile parties. In this way, the possible internal friction of the dragon clan can be alleviated. Aoling, who has experienced the disaster at the beginning, has an inexplicable resistance to killing. Especially for the killing among the same race, it is even more disgusting. Aoling couldn't stop Aoshin's passion for the expansion of the dragon clan, so Aoling chose to create a way for the dragon clan to communicate, so that the dragon clan could solve the problem in a peaceful way. In this way, when the blood of the dragon clan is completely spread throughout the prehistoric world, perhaps this method can be used to eliminate the internal struggle of the dragon clan in the bud. After all, everyone is of the same race, and there are conflicts that cannot be solved by communication. After the deep sea canyon, Aoling turned into a dragon turtle body, accompanied by Aoling's soul deduction. On the tortoise shell on the back of Aoling, countless mysterious rune tracks began to move slowly, a deduction method that only Aoling could understand. Under Aoling's control, it operated quickly. "I want to create the words of the dragon clan and pass on the glory of the dragon clan forever. Let the glory of the dragon clan continue to the end of time." In his heart, Aoling silently swore. When Aoling was trying another way for the future of the dragon clan, In the deep sea, Aoshan led a large number of dragons to spread blood and fear in the deep sea. Countless male marine creatures were ruthlessly killed, and their bodies turned into food for the dragons. Countless female marine creatures were forced to plant the blood seeds of the dragons, thus becoming the hosts for the dragons to breed. The dragons are rapidly expanding with the blood and flesh of the entire marine biological population. The death of every male marine creature is providing military rations for the dragons. The death of every female marine creature is providing new dragons for the dragons. No mistakes. One post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar, one look. Under this cruel and bloody expansion and slaughter, non-dragon creatures in the ocean are rapidly decreasing, and the death of countless marine creatures spreads fear and blood to further away. The ocean is naturally a breeding ground for life. Even after experiencing countless disasters, the number of marine creatures remaining in the ocean is also very large, but no matter how large the biological population is, facing the expansionist attitude of the dragon race, which is not of our kind, and has different intentions, we are powerless. Targeted slaughter is always the best way to destroy a biological group. As the dragon race expands and kills more, a large number of marine creatures, under the fear of death, begin to flee to the land regardless of everything. Even though the land environment at this time is not much better than the marine environment. But after all, there are no executioners like the dragon race on land, who specialize in exterminating the race. With the large-scale migration of marine creatures to land, the legend of the Dragon of Fear also began to spread to land. However, the name of the Dragon of Fear began to evolve towards dinosaurs after the dragons landed on land. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.